Okay,
12.
roll camera. Yeah.
12 Bravo, take 2, marker.
Action. And action.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 176 of McRae Live. The date today is Monday, May the 31st, 2021, 7:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am joined in studio, my brother from another mother, co-director, co-writer, co-producer of It's Me, Billy, Bruce Dale. And this is a special show that we have for you here today. Bruce, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no, this is great to be on the show again. Was on not too long ago, and just a great little special edition that we thought we'd throw it out at everybody. Talk about us as directors on It's Me, Billy. Talk to you about the process. We're gonna blow the hinges off it, as we said.
We
on,
are.
On socials, and
This is it. No, we're blowing it. Although I do want to say thank you for bringing to my attention the typo. This is funny. So I post this.
Right.
I post this, right? I make the thumbnail. I post across all my social media. I send the thumbnail to Bruce, and Bruce, sends me back an email. Yeah, there's a typo. Off. It's supposed to be off and not of. And of course, I look at the one above it.
Oh, right.
Because I have two ofs and ofs. And I look at the one above it and I send him an email back and I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? I said, it's fun. Off is of is off is. And then I look below after I send that email and I'm like, oh, fuck, he's right. Then I quickly, I'm like, I got it. I found it. Sorry, I felt like such an idiot. But anyway, so I had to repost that. But yeah,
it's
so.
all good, yeah. So here we are.
We are. I mean, this is the first time that you and I actually have had a chance to talk since the launch of the movie on Friday. Yeah. I think it's had, considering it is a Black Christmas fan film and it's not Halloween, it's not Freddy, it's not Jason, it's not Ghostface. It's closing in on 16,000 views right now.
Incredible,
which is amazing. And hopefully we can keep that going. Hopefully maybe some other outlet will pick it up and
I hope so.
Talk about it. We hope so, because it's we're proud of it. We feel that we feel that it's something that we think fans, not just Black Christmas fans, but horror fans, I think can appreciate. You know what I mean? So we're very thankful for the response so far. It's been great, and thanks to everybody out there.
Positive, overwhelmingly positive, and there's so many comments out there. It's hard to keep up with them all, to be honest. But again, to Dave's point, truly thankful for all the support. It's just been, for the most part, nothing but love, and just overwhelmingly positive, and just so exciting. Because for Dave and I, this was, truly a piece, a labor of love, a lot of caring, and blood, sweat, and tears went into this. Very much, a calling card piece in that way, if that's fair to say.
Yeah,
but
I think
not
so.
just for us, also, but also for members of the team. Like everybody was invested on the project, and they really loved it for that reason.
Yeah, and
they brought so much of themselves into the project.
I said this. I said it early on, not because I was saying it in a braggadocious way, but I was trying to sort of set the stage and let people know how seriously we were taking this,
how
and very
professional of the caliber we wanted to take it.
Right. So very early on in the process, I would say, probably ad nauseum, I would say things like, this is not going to be, the quality that we are aiming for is something that you could see on Netflix. I mean, it'd be a show that it would fit. Like, if you walked into a room and you saw our film, you wouldn't, you wouldn't be any of the wiser.
And there's been comments online.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Some people have said that. No, it's true. It's true. But that doesn't happen overnight. That's a lot of hard work. That's getting the right people involved. That's, doing it like yes, it's a fan film in terms of the subgenre, but it is a movie, first and foremost. And that's what we wanted to do. And thankfully, I think we were able to deliver on that. So, and I think other people who've watched it are beginning to see, they were right. They're, now again, whether you like what we did, whether you agree with the creative decisions, that's a whole other ballgame. But certainly in terms of the quality and the production value that we were aiming for, that's what we were aiming for. And again, it is not lost on us that we work in the business. So obviously we have access to resources and connections that the average person doesn't. So, that has to be stated, but certainly that was the goal, and I think we achieved that. I'm very proud of everybody, the crew, the cast. It did such an exceptional job, and I hope they are just as happy as we are with the end product, because I think they have everything to be proud of. And I want to just spinning off of what Dave is saying, just give a big shout out to the crew. The crew is often the group of people that they don't get the same kind of credit that the cast does. They're not talked about in the same way that the directors are, the director of photography. That's right.
And, I want to just kind of recap and shout out, we had Nikita on there. That was our gaffer, right? And he was leading the technical team for lighting. We had Luke, who was joining him as an electric/swing working grip as well. We had Naz on the team as our key grip, and we had Stuart. Those four guys really made up the core. They were the lighting and grip team. And they did both sides. And it's tremendous work, really hard working, great work ethic. We did our best to take care of those guys and make sure that they're treated right.
That's it.
And they had a lot of fun with it. And there were so many moments too that we got to give them, like for example, the jib shots. We're going to release some BTS footage a little bit later down the road. And folks are going to have a copy of it on the Blu-rays, those that purchase that perk.
Right.
But you're going to see some footage of the setup of some of the work that they're doing. You're going to get to see some of the work that they did, because Dave and I, we've cut together it's almost an hour long.
Yeah, it's longer than the movie.
Yeah, it's longer than the movie. An hour long BTS movie for It's Me Billy that's going to be on the Blu-ray for folks. So you're going to get to see them in action. You're going to get to meet them through the video. But shout out to those four guys. And I want to give a shout out to Jacqueline, who is our first AC and focus puller. There were so many shots where, like Dave put out that post the other day about the oneer. We call it the oneer, which it's the single shot that never cuts.
Yeah.
It's traveling from Sam's bedroom all the way down to the front
It's
door.
funny. It's so...
She nailed it.
Yeah.
Like Jacqueline nailed the focus on that. And
I don't know if anybody noticed it. And shout out to, of course, Greg Bennett, our DP, who is just tremendous. And he said something to me, and he's bang on. I said to him, I think it was at the world premiere, I said, I wonder if anybody's going to notice this shot.
Yeah.
And Greg said, well, if it's done right, they won't.
Right.
And I said, that's true, because there is a shot in the movie where, oh good, I have the spoiler alert up there, just in case somebody hasn't seen it yet. There's a shot in the movie. It is after the death of Justine, and we cut in, and Sam is in bed.
Right.
And from that moment, it does not cut again until we get to the front door.
Yeah.
And so we track backwards. We're tracking backward. I mean, shout out to Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, we are tracking backwards down this narrow hallway, up what we call these baby steps, like 3 or 4 steps.
Yeah.
Dylan, our second AC, is behind Greg, who is sort of kind of spotting him down this narrow hallway because Greg's attached to the Ronin, and he's got the camera on this gimbal for this support, and he's going down this hall, and he goes up these steps. He goes onto the second floor landing, and that's where we capture Victoria beautifully silhouetted against the window when she says, Justine, right? The film is not cut.
No.
The movie has not cut. We go into some darkness where some people might think, oh, I wonder if there was a cut. No, it does not cut. And then there's the knock at the door, and Victoria, Sam, she then turns. She's like, what the fuck was that? Turns and starts walking down the stairs, and Greg's still going. He's still going, and he goes down the stairs to the bottom floor all the way. It's a 1 minute and 50 seconds.
Yeah.
1 minute and 50 seconds. And that might not seem like a lot, but any filmmaker will tell you, very rarely do you see 1 minute and 50 seconds tracking shots in movies that do not cut. It's extraordinarily difficult to do, especially when you are going from one floor to the next.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Down a set of stairs, backwards up another set of stairs, okay? And the lighting that our team did, you are lighting 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 different spaces through about, I got to say, like at least 10 different windows, all coming through. And the lighting's got unbelievable. I forget who it was. It might have been Nikita. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for him. But somebody said there on the team said it out of anything they've ever done, and they're experienced guys, it was the biggest single lighting setup they've done. Yeah. For one shot. Yeah. And I thought it turned out great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And it was when you see the behind the scenes, you'll get to see all the different lights that are set up around the house to make it seem like it's one source kind of coming in through the windows. Yeah. But just to give a couple more shout outs to Dylan, our second AC that you mentioned. Yep. He was tremendous. Oh. He's the guy with the slate that you saw at the beginning of today's show. And shout out to him.
Adrian Ancona, our boom operator and sound mixer on set, who's got such a dry sense of humor. I love him.
He's great. He was great. And you know what? Kudos to him because, Dave put in a ton of work on the sound design in post-production, right? Yeah. But, someone was talking to me the other day and they had said, the sound of the voices were correctly placed in the physical spaces. Because that's one of the things you have to think about in audio is, does this voice, because sometimes when you record in a studio, you're not quite getting the right environment, right?
That's right.
It sounds like you're talking in drywall when it's supposed to be wood, that kind of thing. Yeah. But because we were recording sound on location, Adrian did a fantastic job miking the performers, recording ambient sounds for us, and just he set it up the right way each time and really nailed it.
The entire crew was really professional, on time, on point, and we'll talk about this, of course, later on, but I can assure you, everybody out there, that all audio is clean. Yes. There are no mic. If you hear a jacket move or or something, it's supposed to be there. There's a purpose for the effect. It's not because somebody was laved and you're hearing shout out to Cody Leach. Yeah. I love Cody though. But you know what though? I get it. I mean, I would have thought the same thing, right? I mean, if I heard something, I might have been like, oh, I wonder if that's, I think that might have been, that's kind of weird, because even Cody said that's kind of weird because the rest of the shoot was so like the rest of the audio was so clean. Right, even Cody said it was kind of strange to kind of hear that. Right. Of course, then he went back and watched it again. He was like, yeah, it's not there anymore. That's kind of weird. I wonder, you know what I mean? Anyways, all audio was clean. I can tell you, as somebody that does this for a living, I would never have let that slide. Never would have got past me. Never would have got past me.
Dave's got a great ear for it. Like, I hear for those things too. Like we definitely share a lot of things in common, like our, what have you, but it's true. Adrian did a fantastic job.
He did a great job. Amazing.
And then a lot of you that were at the VIP screening.
Shout out to Emma Tooth, our production assistant. Oh, that's sorry. I thought.
Yeah, no, we're saying the same thing. We're saying
I stole your thunder.
Yeah, no, not at all. Okay. Yeah, no, do it, dude. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Emma. Shout out to Emma.
Yeah, shout out to Emma Tooth, who was
Yeah.
our production assistant, it was the first professional shoot she'd ever worked on, and she was tremendous. And I believe at this moment she is moving out to Vancouver.
She is.
So good luck out in Vancouver. Maybe you'll wind up on some shoots out there. And I'm telling you, if we get to do the sequel, we may have to fly her back. I think we've been spoiled now.
I know.
For production assistants.
I
just
know.
don't think there's anybody better.
I know. I've been following her posts on Instagram, and last I saw she was in Winnipeg. So she's recording her travel across Canada as she goes.
Yeah.
So she must be driving.
She's driving with her mom. I think with her
cool.
mom.
I think that's great.
I don't know if it's just, or maybe it's just her. I don't know. Maybe it's both her mom and her. I don't know.
Very
Anyway,
cool.
shout out to her mom too, because her mom's very
and
nice.
so many people give kudos and shout outs to the drone shots, and we want to say shout out to Adam Gamble,
Yes.
who was our drone operator.
Rise Up Pictures.
Yeah, he was fantastic. You know, he came in on the morning of, right? Like I keep saying, it was serendipitous. We got that second snowfall on the Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And he was honest with us. He said, guys, there's still a lot of snow in the sky. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do this. Maybe we can get like one shot in. And it just happened to lighten up just enough that the conditions were safe to fly. We got those that initial shot that you see in the movie coming up on the house.
Yeah.
That was a continuous shot. We chose to cut on that for stylistic
Cut it,
choice.
and then in post, I put it would look weird if there was not an audio cue to accent that. So that's why you hear like boom, boom, boom on the cuts, right? You have to do that, or it's just going to look awkward.
Yeah. So no, that part was all fantastic. And then, so like the crew overall, are we forgetting anybody?
Greg, Adrian, Jacqueline, Dylan, Luke, Stuart, Nikita, Naz, Emma. That makes up pretty much the crew. And then there's you and I, and then of course Brian and Victoria and Shelby and Malika, and shout out of course to Cafe Deluxe, which was our caterer in Ottawa. Amazing. Like just the perfect. I mean, it wasn't like gourmet. It was the perfect, really good meals and fresh all the time, and like really great breakfast sandwiches and great wraps and dinners that were just really great stuff, all fresh and everything. Shout out to them because they did a great job. I wouldn't
Anybody
hesitate.
shooting in the Ottawa area, look them up. Definitely recommend.
For sure. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how Bruce and I want to tackle this show right now is we want to talk about our approach. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about, is our approach to this kind of movie. There we are. It's I don't want to move that. I want to move this. We'll just put this. We'll just put that there. There we go. The approach. I spelled that right? APPROACH. Okay. You got me worried now. Our proc. Okay.
We're,
so
proofreading.
That's right. Because it's fascinating when you release a movie to the world and people start. And again, I mean, even when people like, yes, you get a few people that are like, I thought it was garbage and it was crap and everything. I mean, I've read those too. You know what I mean? I've seen that too.
Everybody.
No, you can't, and that's fine. I mean, if somebody wants to think it's dog shit, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's
You're
fine.
entitled to your opinion.
Exactly. Everything was horrible. Like, clearly it's not. Like, it's very difficult to take somebody seriously when somebody goes to such extremes.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, we did make some creative decisions that surprised some people. And especially to my viewers out there, surprised my viewers because of how I talk on this channel about certain, aspects of anonymity, ambiguity, an enigma, what you think you see, what you think you hear, all that kind of stuff as it relates to characters. And so we will be talking about that as well, and why we made the creative decisions we did. So, but before we get too far into it, let's talk about our approach. So this is a direct sequel to Black Christmas 1974. This is a fan film because we don't own the IP, but we took it as seriously as we would if we were making an original piece. I mean, it essentially is original for all intents and purposes, but an original thing, like I said, called Bob's Diner or something, had nothing to do. We would have hired the same people, done the same thing. It was shot on the Arri Alexa Mini, which is professional motion picture camera. They shot The Joker on that, Game of Thrones, 1917, on and on and
Avengers
on.
that, like it's
Avengers was shot. I think even Halloween 18 might have been shot on the Arri, but I'm not sure. So
very popular camera.
Yeah, huge, and it's just, I mean, and Greg of course did an amazing job. so we were taking it seriously. And of course, but you can have the best camera, you can have the best piano, you can have the best equipment in the world. If you don't know how to use it, it doesn't mean anything. Sure. So again, that's why we wanted to shout out to the crew, because they're the ones that brought it to life. They know how to use it. They brought it to life under our direction and, of course, vision. So we took this very seriously. So yes, it's a fan film, but there's reasons why it looks the way it does. And we wanted to understand, or we want people to understand that, this is a sequel.
Right.
So we needed to push the narrative forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just making the same movie over again.
Yeah. And we don't want to do that.
And we didn't want to do that. So it's not a fan film in the sense of that we are making a Black Christmas fan film that is our own version of the original. Sometimes you'll see amateur filmmakers or home movies or whatever, they'll do that, right? They'll make their own version of it, or,
and that's common for a fan film.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
It's a logical choice.
Nothing wrong with that. Somebody's playing Dr. Loomis, somebody's playing Laurie Strode, whatever the case is. But that's not what this was. This was a sequel. And in a sequel, that is the next chapter in a story, you have to advance the narrative forward and introduce things. You have to answer questions. Yep. But if you are planning on leaving it open like we did, you also have to introduce new questions that can be answered in a possible third installment to keep that narrative going.
Yes.
Right. Yep. And that was sort of our approach was, we understand that anyway, so that was sort of the idea was what is our endpoint, right? Like what is our endpoint? What is the story? Yeah. You know what I mean? And our endpoint was, I turned to Bruce and I said, and I understand, and there are a lot of Black Christmas hardcore fans, and I'm one too. I'm a hardcore Black Christmas fan. I understand that there is enough circumstantial evidence to suggest that Jess died at the end of the original film. Sure. I get that. Sure. Because there's the theory that Billy makes a phone call after every death. That's true. He actually does. Yep. And then, of course, she's left alone in the house. She's lying there. Right. The camera's panning back. The phone's ringing. He must have got her. Amazing. What an amazing ending. Yeah. However, we don't know. And even Bob Clark, before he died, the director of the movie, said that he was interested in doing a sequel with Olivia Hussey reprising her role. And I believe it was going to be something, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was something along the lines of that she would maybe be like the new house mother or something in a new house of sorority girls or something like that. So she'd be playing something like that. But the important part of that is even Bob Clark, the director of the film, acknowledges that he could have survived. Right. You know what I mean? So, so we took it from that point of view. We thought, let's take it from here. Let's say she does survive, and then wait a minute, she's pregnant. We don't know if the baby is, was killed or not killed, but was affected by the struggle or the mayhem that happened. Right. And we wanted to take the approach of that, although she wanted to have an abortion and she was so set on having an abortion, right? Peter was the one, and that was really uncommon back then. I mean, usually it was the other way around. The men were like, you gotta get rid of the baby. You know what I mean? So it was, it was very new. She decided to not have the abortion because of how impacted emotionally she was from that night. She saw it as a sign almost, because she was a very spiritual kind of person as well. Right. So she saw it as sort of a sign that maybe she shouldn't, kill this baby, right? That we survived this night for a reason, like what Sam says. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think from there, the next thing we talked about was Billy, because when you're entering into a sequel, you have to ask yourself as a filmmaker, as a writer, where are we entering the story, like Dave was saying. So first we took a look at the original Black Christmas. Let's first assess, where does that story end? Right. What openings are available to us that we could leverage and use, put together, and build off that as a jump point? So we considered all the things that Dave just described. Yep. From there, we started to talk about the character of Billy and dived right into that. And we were like, okay, well, how old would Billy be if we did it present day? What would that look like? Where in the timeline would that take us? And so we determined, well, we're like 45, 50 years later. We started talking about what shape the character of Billy might be in, not necessarily physically, but yes, physically, but mentally, and his psychology, and you're like, where is he at? Like what's happened? How much has he deteriorated? Because it's a safe assumption that he's deteriorated.
Right, because if he's that far gone in 1974 at the age of, let's say, 23 or 4 or 5,
where is
then
he now?
and he didn't get the help that one would need,
Right.
or he was not caught by the authorities,
Right.
or whatever the case is, how far of a mental decay, a degenerative decay mentally, would he be? And somebody had said to me on Twitter the other day, said, and I get it. Am I left to, they said this, am I left to assume that because some of the phone calls that we did, or some of the sound design that we did in our film, not all the way through, but there were certain moments where I chose to overlap the voices a bit. Right. And they said, am I left to assume then that that's actually 2 people and not just him? And I said, no. I said, you have to remember that in the original film, there's a little bit of overlap there, not as much as we did, but there's a little bit there. And there's a line, it might even be Claire, actually. Shout out to Lynn Griffin, if it is her. Somebody says in that film, and I paraphrase, is that all one person?
Right.
Somebody says that because it's the spectrum that you hear. At first he's he's up here, and then he's down here, and then he's doing all this crazy stuff. It's like, is that one person? Well, think 50 years later. Again, this isn't our own version of the original.
Right.
This is a sequel to the original 50 years later. Where would he be mentally, cognitively? I mean, what could he do? What would that sound like today? Maybe maybe it actually does sound like it's layered. Like at certain moments, you're like, whoa, that's eerie. How the fuck did he throw his voice like that? Right? You know what I mean? Because it's a progression of the decay of his mental state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think as filmmakers, every filmmaker can relate to this statement that you're going to choose to take certain creative liberties with things, or push the boundary or the envelope on certain things. And we chose to do that in certain areas, but we did our best to be calculated about it.
That's right.
And not make it so over the top that it's not believable and it's a bunch of nonsense, but that it's, it pushes the envelope a little bit for sure, but and I think in a very good way, in an artistic way, because there's a lot of creative choices that Dave and I made as filmmakers, filmmaker to fellow filmmakers, and sharing in that experience too, because that's a lot of fun as well.
It is.
To be able to create and craft and share that vision visually and then auditory as well.
That's right.
So definitely picking things up with Billy and looking at his character and where he was at. And then we made the decision to have the story take place present day. So then we asked ourselves, okay, well, which generation of the family are we dealing with then? And we made the choice, obviously, that Jess survives. Jess chooses to keep the baby. And then we thought, okay, well, this puts us in and around the time of, say, Jess's granddaughter. And then we thought, well, do we want to show the mom? What happened to the mom? And in the movie, we give some backstory there that the mom is gone at this point in the story. If this was ever turned into a Netflix series, we have lots of room because of how we've purposely written the story, where there's enough gaps in the story that we can fill to build out a full series.
That's right.
If we wanted to.
One thing I just wanted to add, because you said that, and it's a very good point, is in case you haven't noticed, those of you that have watched it, It's Me, Billy is its own self-contained film, but it's designed episodically.
Right.
And the reason why I couldn't tell you that for so long until now is because it would let you know that it ends in a way that could be continued.
Yeah, it would spoil it.
It would spoil it. So I couldn't say to you.
Hopefully you appreciate that.
I didn't have to tell you that it ends with Grandma. I didn't have to tell you that it ends with Agnes. I didn't have to say that. All I would have to say is that this first, think of it like a first installment. Why would I say that? Now you're going to be thinking, oh, well, I guess there's more.
Yeah, and as filmmakers, we want there to be that surprise.
Exactly.
We want to give you that twist at the end and make you go, oh, fuck, shit.
Exactly. But like I said on a tweet too, I said, and we'll talk a bit about this in a moment, but yes, we have an idea, a strong idea, actually, of where we're going. Yeah. We didn't arbitrarily just do this because we thought it was cool. As I said on
Right.
Twitter the other day. We're not Lucasfilm. We actually
I love that comment.
we actually have a plan.
Yeah.
We have a
We
plan.
wrote it down.
We wrote it down. So yeah, I know. I thought that was my. I was very proud of myself. I was like, oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
We're choosing to be the directors.
Yeah,
that
we
follow
are.
through on the continuity.
Exactly.
But we're actually very excited. Yes, there is full intention to do another part. And we would love to do
We would
that.
love to do. It depends, of course, on how well this continues to do.
Yeah.
What the response is, what
If
the
there's an
feedback
appetite
is, if there's
for
an
it.
appetite for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to capitalize on what you said because you're right. It is. Think of it. It is. If we had $5 million and this was a series, you would already be on to the next episode, right?
Right.
It'd be like, Grandma, and then be like, oh shit, and you'd be binge watching this whole thing. You know what I mean?
That's the sign of a great show.
That's a sign of a great
Yeah,
show.
I think-
But having said that, when you are crowdfunding and you're not studio backed,
Right.
you can, to deliver the production value that we did in this first episode, you have to take it in stages. It just becomes too big, too fast. With such a small crew, we needed to take it. Let's take it slow,
Yeah.
right? But if
You
we
have to keep it manageable and focused.
exactly,
Focused management of the production, because that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That people don't think about is when you're making a movie, when people are first starting out, there's a lot of stuff that just happens, right? And people notice themselves getting caught in that moment, going, "Oh right, yeah, I forgot to. Oh right, shit, what are we gonna do for lunch? Right, hey, so can you order some pizza?
Yeah.
Or it could be like, wow, you're thirsty, right? Oh, you have to use the washroom. Right. Oh,
Yeah.
we wanted
Oh,
a
right.
prop
We need
for-
toilet paper.
Right. These
Shit.
and we're just referencing some of the small details,
Yeah,
but
small
these
stuff.
are, and there's much bigger aspects, but it's all management of the production to make it happen. And that's part of the producing of it, right?
Yeah.
To produce and make it happen. So
Yeah.
in terms of the, just to finish off on the approach of things, it was coming up with a strong story, because
Yeah.
we also know that when you don't have limitless budget, and even if you do have limitless budget, let's face it, it starts with a great story and a strong story. We did our best to craft the story. And
Yeah, the most important thing about any film is a story.
Yeah.
That's the foundation. If you think of it like you're building a house,
Yeah.
the story is your foundation.
yep,
Because if you don't have a strong story, it doesn't matter how great your living room looks or how nice your TV is, the whole house is going to implode.
yeah,
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no,
So
exactly.
you know.
And that's where I don't know if we'll have enough time to go into it in this session here, but like there was a lot of factors that weighed into helping us shape the story. In fact, like there were far more locations that we originally had intended, and other spots and things we wanted to do. And we had actually approached the original Black Christmas house. We tried to get some FaceTime with the owners, but we were shut down. And we had to keep working the story. And we work on that and I want to say shout out to Bill, my friend Bill, who taught me this. Take
Bill,
your
really, yeah.
limitations and turn them into your assets. And he always said that to me in sort of a coaching kind of mentorship capacity. So thank you, Bill, for that, because it's always resonated with me and sat with me. And,
Yeah.
we applied that here, and we said to each other, okay, we were shut down on that. Fine. We're still determined to tell this story. So we'll craft it. We will make it work. And we are determined to make it work so that it's not contrived.
Right.
Because that's the last thing that you want. And that's really about reworking the story, reworking it.
Well, and the opening of the film, some people have asked, is the opening of the film, is Sam talking, the very opening of the movie, obviously, Emma says, "Are you okay?" And Sam says, "I just wish we had gotten in. It's such bullshit." And then Justine says, "It's like they knew we were coming before we even got there," or something like that. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So what they are talking about the original sorority house.
Yeah.
And they are having a moment among friends. Sam has always wanted to go inside and see it, and she was never able to. And because her grandma used to talk about it all the time, it was a big part of her life that she always wanted to see it. The opening of the movie is a bit meta in a way, because it it is a reflection of the frustration that Bruce and I felt
Yeah.
when we actually in the original very first draft of the movie, it was going to open with the original Black Christmas house.
Yeah.
And Sam was actually going to be walking up to it. And that is where she was going to meet Mrs. Crane, who was there, unbeknownst to the audience that it's Agnes and whatnot. But she was going to go inside, and we were hoping to film in there, not all over the place, but just kind of a nice little brief, maybe 2 or 3 minute scene that was really kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool, you know? But when we went down there, the house obviously is here in Toronto, for those of you that don't know. It is still there. It's not a sorority house. It never was, but it is a heritage place now. It's in a very affluent neighborhood of Toronto, and it's on a private street, and who knows how many people, we may have been the 3rd person that day, you know, or the 10th person that week, but we walked up to the intercom, which is what you hear Emma refer to in the film. But we walked up to the intercom and we hit the intercom, and all I heard was yes. And I went into like a 30-second thing where I was like, hi, I'm Dave McRae. We're making this movie. And all we heard was, no. And that was it. And it was like, what was so frustrating was, and I get it. I understand. It's a private home. I get it. Like I said, we might have been the 5th person that day. But what's frustrating is that we didn't even get a chance to sell it. We didn't even get a chance to talk to them. I mean, obviously we would have paid them, you know. Yeah. We just wanted an opportunity. So the opening of the movie is a bit meta. It's Bruce and I putting the Black Christmas house in the movie without putting it in the movie, but kind of our experience. You know what I mean? So that's what that is about.
And some people had asked, why would they go to the sorority house in the first place? Why would they be wanting to go there? So that's where you have to think about it from a writing and directorial standpoint. Because when you're coaching an actor, you have to be able to work with them to talk about, well, where's your character coming from before this moment that we're filming right now? And so there's a journey. And you have to relate it to real life and real people. And what, as people, we're always coming from somewhere. There's always something that's happened. There's experiences that have influenced our present state and what we're thinking and feeling and whatever it is. Yeah. So you apply those same sensibilities when you're directing and when you're writing. And you have to keep those things in mind. You may not openly state them, but that's the subtext or part of the subtext that is a director would read the lines and read the dialogue, read the action, and then piece it together, and you get a sense of it. And that's what actors are looking for, and they're paying attention to that kind of stuff. So we've baked that into every aspect of it, and that's just us doing our best to write the best quality that we can, and be intelligent with it all as well.
That's right.
So they're basically going up to grandma's house to spend one last Christmas to settle the estate because their grandmother has recently passed away, so they believe. And so it's a normal part of the process. It's part of Sam's grieving process as a character where she wants to go to the sorority house. There's just something about that would help give her some closure. This is the place where her grandmother was, where all of that stuff happened that night that she talked about all the time.
That's right.
That became the tumultuous point, the sticking point between her and her mom, like all of that kind of stuff. So it makes sense that her character would be motivated to want to go there. And that's really it. She wants to go there. She wants to check that out, but she's denied access. And so clearly she's upset about that. And here we are, probably not too far away from it.
Right.
And we're picking up the film right at the tail end of when there might have been an outburst or she's upset or, whatever it is. And,
it's true. And that denial of that access is not just denying her the ability to see the house. It's denying her ability to grieve. It's denying her ability.
And that's how she interprets it.
Right. Because it's almost like there's almost a sort of a in some ways an ownership over that house that she feels in a not in a literal sense, but because it's something somebody has talked about so much. Her mother wrote a book about it. She became rich about it. She, what I mean? It was such a big, a big deal. So that's what that opening was there, what that was all about. Let's talk about the character of Billy. I want to talk about this because this is an area where, again, some viewers were surprised by some of the creative decisions that we made with the character of Billy. And in particular, how how we decided to show the character of Billy in this installment.
There's a lot of questions about
and
this.
there's a lot of questions about that. And a lot of my viewers and some people are surprised because I preach, ambiguity, anonymity, theater of the mind, keeping people in shadow and all that kind of stuff. And they are not wrong. They are correct. But here's the difference. And here's what you have to understand. Billy is not Michael Myers. Okay. Michael Myers is, there's a character trait to Michael Myers that needs to be Billy too, but with Michael Myers, you need to play into that supernatural darkness and mystique much more than you do with Billy. With Billy, you need to shroud him in shadow and darkness, but not necessarily in the same ways that you would with a character like Michael Myers. Now, in the first Black Christmas, all we see with Billy are his hands, we see his silhouette, and that's great, right? That's great. And if we were making our own version of that first movie, that's what we would have done.
Yeah.
Because it's the first installment in the story.
Right.
So you are being introduced to this enigma, this mysterious person. Who is this? When you get to 50 years later, if we decided to keep Billy in the exact same way, it's not like we showed him. I mean, we didn't draw back the curtain and there he is at the dining room table with the girls. But we knew that Billy is a real guy. Billy's not supernatural. He's a real person. There's not even a supernatural element to him. So it's important that what we wanted to do was we wanted to show Billy, quote unquote, in a way that you haven't seen him before, that makes sense for the middle chapter, right? Because you're progressing it forward while still honoring the DNA of what was set in the first film in terms of him being in shadow and in darkness, never really seeing his face. The hair is covering it, but you have an opportunity to see him in a way that you haven't seen him before, but not see him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this is the extent for which we would go. We wouldn't then in part 3, all of a sudden he's sitting there with his hair in a ponytail,
chilling on the beach under bright sunlight.
Yeah, that's not.
This is the extent that we.
That's the extent we would go.
Yeah.
But we wanted an opportunity to play with this character.
Yeah, we want to do more with it.
We want to do more with the character, especially now that it's 50 years later. Who knows where he is psychologically and those deep cognitive ramifications of where he would be. And, maybe you've never seen Billy from a third person point of view other than him entering Margot Kidder's bedroom. And now you see him in the rocking chair and it surprises people. Oh my God, I think it's too bright. Well, in comparison, maybe it's too bright to what you saw in the first movie, but it's not actually bright at all.
Well,
he's actually,
how much are you actually seeing of him?
How much are you seeing of him? You see his body, you see him in the rocking chair, right? But to be fair, there were people during the trailer that thought that was a woman. There were people in the trailer that thought that was Jess. There were people speculating, oh, maybe it's Jess, with long hair, and she's the one. So, clearly some people didn't even know it was a guy.
Right.
So again, if you look at it from our point of view, we want to play with the character of Billy, keeping the anonymity there, but this is the second chapter. This is the next in the story. So we needed to progress his character forward. Yeah. It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
When you are writing, you are doing this, and then you're coming over here, and then you're massaging this, and then you're doing this, and then you're looking at the DNA, and you're doing this, because you want to honor what has come before, but also this is the next chapter. It's the next. So how are we seeing Billy and where is he now? You know what I mean? And we needed our audience to see the next stage or the final stages of his life, right? Because he's late 60s, early 70s now. This is where he is now, right? And I personally think we did a really good job at walking that line, that balance between
I think so too.
Between showing you a bit more, right, in terms of his character, but not Freddy Kruegering, Freddy's dead, 1991 shit, you know.
No, we wanted to keep it
you know?
grounded, because that was the other thing too, is to Dave's earlier point, this isn't Michael Myers. So we want to keep the character grounded. He's not a supernatural character in our minds. He is someone who has a mental illness, and there's, you know, a sickness to him,
Right.
psychologically speaking. And so, you know, we wanted some physicality with this. We wanted to see it. Like we want to get into some of the action with Billy. You know, he's the villain. You know, and you know, for us, it was a creative choice, deliberate creative choice. But you know, the other thing too, you know, thinking of the attic scene, thinking of Justine's death scene.
Yeah.
We worked very hard to do our best to make those shots disturbing,
Right.
creepy,
Yeah.
and scary.
Right.
And especially Justine's death scene.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even as the filmmaker, the guy who knows the next shot that's coming up,
Yeah.
when I see Justine scream and then we cut to Billy close up and all we see is the hair and his face is in darkness and he's like, shh. Like, that's a very scary image.
Yeah.
And there's so many parts that contribute to it from a cinematic
Well
language
said.
point of view.
Well said.
Because, you know, it's startling, it's disturbing, but it's very genuine in its disturbingness
Yeah.
and its startlingness, if that's a word. So, you know, it was walking the fine line, but making very clear decisions on where we wanted to show
That's
things and how much, to what extent, you know, and having them play in the shadows. But that was like Billy's moment right there.
You've hit the nail right on the head. When you come to the conclusion as a writer that you are going to, quote unquote, show Billy in a way that he hasn't been seen before, then it becomes how. And what is the dynamic that surrounds that?
Yeah.
Right? It's not just him in a rocking chair. It's the stuff that leads up to it. It's the stuff that's after it. And as you just beautifully pointed out, when he's there and Justine turns and he goes, shh, you don't see anything. And then he leaps onto the bed and then you see the eye and you see this, and it's this, you might get a sense of something, right? But that's expected in the second chapter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's expected that would be sort of, at least for me, where I would want to go. Imagine, if you will, if Michael Myers was done the same way in Halloween 18. Right? Okay. Imagine if they treated Michael Myers, because you see him clear as day. I mean, he puts on the mask in broad daylight, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So imagine if they had, and again, no disrespect to the filmmakers that made that film. I'm just saying these are different creative choices.
Right.
Imagine if they had treated Michael Myers in Halloween 18 the way we treated Billy in our 50-year later movie. Right? So there's that's kind of the thing that you have to keep in mind. And you have to remember too that at the end of the day, folks, this is the reality of what happens when you extend a story with a character that is in the first installment otherwise ambiguous.
Right.
You know, it's just a natural default that if you want to continue, if you don't want that it's a byproduct that if you are going to continue the story, the character needs to continue to develop.
That's it. Yeah. Really great point, because as filmmakers, we make the choice that we want, because one of the things that I don't know, how do I put it? Like when you watch a sequel, because again, keep in mind, this is it's intended to be a sequel to the original. Yeah. So we said to ourselves quite deliberately, how would Billy's character have developed after all these years? Who is he?
That's it.
Let's explore who this character is. And this is what we came up with.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, our ideas that we are forming for the writing of another part, we're starting at that same point almost, where we're now asking ourselves, how much more has Billy developed and where do we want to go with it? Because, you know, as much as, how do I put it? It's sort of like, as much as people want to see things stay the same and not change.
Right.
We have to remain open to the idea that if we were to change it, how much can we change it by, while still maintaining the integrity of the character and the essence and the identity of all that it is. And we feel as though we've done justice to do that. Yeah. Very deliberate, conscious choices, but evolve the character in the right pathway that is reasonable to it, that still does justice to the character, does justice to the IP, you know, but gives us a new exciting level to the character that we hadn't seen before.
Correct.
And then it opens up stuff for us to do as filmmakers, as writers, as creators.
And you just hit the nail on the head. You know, it's about, you know, as much as people want things to stay the same, if you are by default continuing a story, characters need to develop.
Yeah.
And it's not that they develop, it's how they develop.
Well,
and what you do with the character of Billy. And you know this, and I was very adamant about, you know, we can't show him like this, we can't show him like that.
Yeah.
He needs to be like this, he needs to be like that. But I was aware as co-writer, producer, director, that I was aware that I wanted a little more than just a thumb and an eye.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I wanted, because this is the second part, you know, and so we needed to have that ability where you're like, oh, whoa, so, oh my God, so this is where we are now, right? But he's there in silhouette, and, you know, and he's on the bed, and he's, you know, he comes into the room, and as he's dragging Sam in the basement of the house down, you know, the corridor, you see his body, but you're not seeing him really at all. What really are you seeing?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, but I do understand. I understand hardcore Black Christmas fans, and I'm one of them, that appreciate the ambiguity, the not seeing anything at all. I get that, and that makes sense for the first part. But I don't think it makes sense if you're going to continue the story, because, you know, otherwise, you're just doing the same thing over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, you know, I think the final point that I'll make about Billy is that, you know, as writers, you always talk about the need to develop your protagonist, right? And quite often there's more emphasis placed on the development of them and not really much development placed on the villain. So what happens when you try to develop both? I personally think as a writer, you have a more dynamic story. It's more interesting. There's greater depth to the characters. And how many times do we watch shows and stories now where our villain is also our hero? You know,
It's an anti-hero.
Yeah, and
That's not Billy, by the way. But.
No. And I'm not saying that, but it's that.
Well, it's the development you're talking about.
It's the development, and so we wanted to develop this character and play with it, but. And without naming IPs, unlike some IPs that may not have honored legacy characters and made very drastic choices that, in my personal I statement level opinion, my little tucked away in a little corner opinion of, you know, ruined some stuff, we were very conscious to not do that and still honor this character, so that when you watch it, you go, okay, maybe I saw a little too much of him, but at no point do I have any disbelief that that's Billy. Like I believe that's Billy 100%.
Right.
And I think, and I haven't heard anybody say that they didn't.
No,
think it was that.
I think it's just, I think some people are surprised. It's two things. One, they've never seen him ever.
Right.
And in this way, they've never seen him ever. And number two, I'm a guy on here talking about, you know, ambiguity, anonymity, all this in the shadow stuff. And that is true. And with Michael Myers, that's true. And then in the first installment, that's true. But it's, you know, even I am somebody that, but with Billy, it's a bit different because he's not Michael. It's a different kind of character per se. Anyways, we've talked about that, but that was our mindset.
Right.
Behind the approach to Billy, we think we walked that line quite nicely, where we gave you,
we did our best to
we gave you Billy from the OG, but we made it our own
and developed
him, but he's still scary.
Yeah, we wanted him to be menacing. There was this underpinning, menacing, like disturbing nature that we wanted. This very unsettling, disturbing, menacing nature to this character. And the attic is a great example where when we were crafting that shot, it was all about, we wanted a lower angle, or we're sort of like eye level with that rocking chair. And if you really watch the shot, you'll notice we just cut in. It's static. He takes his temper tantrum.
Takes the audience by surprise.
Yeah, we do cut in for the close-up with the doll and whatever, and then we cut back to that same static shot. So it's really only two shots. When we were filming it, it's a two-shot scene. But then you'll notice that once he sits down, he starts rocking, the camera dollies out very slowly. And as directors, you know, I kept saying to Dave, I really want this sense of we have accidentally stumbled upon something that we know we should not be witnessing, and we know we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we need to get the fuck out of here. And
it's a great analogy.
But we cannot allow ourselves to be detected, because if we do, this man's going to kill us.
That's right.
And that was the kind of vibe we wanted with that scene. And it's that, I don't know if you want to call that subtext, but it's that level of thinking.
It's that level of
go to
depth that we've gone to.
We think to that depth when we're crafting the shots.
And in that scene, what's so great about that scene is we've killed, again, I guess we kind of have to because it's a 42-minute movie, but it's crafted. I mean, we took our time. I've received a lot of compliments from people saying that, you packed so much into a 42-minute movie, but it doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like everything feels intentional and precise, and it's got great pace, and that is hard work. I mean, that is hard work to do that. But in that scene with Billy, when we're first introduced to him, we're tracking along the bed of Justine. It's quiet. You kind of hear a rocking. It's like, is that a rocking, whatever? And then boom, we cut into Billy like we've opened a door, like, oh shit, there we are. And in that scene, we get Billy rocking in a rocking chair. We get him having a temper tantrum, which he had in the OG, but you haven't seen it from this perspective before.
No.
You haven't seen it. So you're seeing that temper tantrum again, but from a different perspective now, right?
Yeah.
Still shrouded in silhouette with the lamp and the phone that's there, and he's freaking out. He's got the doll. He throws the doll. He kicks over a box, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And then he sits back down, and he starts singing Little Baby Bunting. Right. And there's another check. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, and he's sitting this, and Brian did such an amazing job. That's not my voice, by the way. That's Brian's voice, the actor that plays Billy, who saying that he was rehearsing that all evening to get the, the words right, and did such a great job rocking there. And then you just kind of, as you said, dolly out, like we're slowly exiting.
Yeah, creeping back.
Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this.
Yeah. Because it's, and when we think about those types of shots, is that, you try to imagine the position it puts the audience in and the psychology of it, and what kind of imagery are you creating. It's a horror movie, so it's a genre piece. So we want to create scary imagery. That's what people have signed up to watch.
Right.
So how do we make a guy in a rocking chair scary, and the way that we craft it, and and every aspect of it, like there's subtext even to the lighting.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things we talked a lot with Greg about. So again, that attic shot, you hear us, we're just talking about this one shot this whole time, but there's so much to it. That this bare bulb, right?
Yeah.
Just like there's no real crafting. It's just this stark contrast between light and shadow. And it's these absolutes. It's, we're not in this beautifully lit, soft space. It's high contrast, and it's scary, and it's uneasy, and like, where are we? And there's no sense of where the boundaries are to this space. And it seems confined, like we're in a world with him. Even the lighting contributes to articulating who the character is.
That's right.
And that was a large part of, crafting. We looked at the house as a character, and how the house was lit. And this is all the stuff we talked with Greg about, right? Yeah. And Greg went to town. He was like, yes, I'm eating this up. Like, give me more. And he just loved it. And this man was like researching the shit out of things. And it was amazing. It was such a privilege to work with him. Yeah. He was amazing.
There's a comment here. I just want to capitalize on this, because it's a good point to sort of capitalize on, I guess I should say. Dave Vanderhoff says, I believe that's you, Dave, says, I wish the attic was more cluttered with junk. It was a little too clean. Well, you see, Dave, you have to remember, I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think this is the perfect example of what Bruce and I are talking about, in the sense of, in the original film, it's cluttered with junk. So you have that emotional attachment to that visual, that identity. So when you think of Billy in an attic, that's what you think of. And as a fan, when you don't see that, you're like, oh, that just looks a little too clean. Says who? So, I mean, it's too clean. How, right? That's the attic. That's what it is. In our story, that's what the attic looks like. This isn't the same attic. This isn't the sorority house, right? This is 50 years later. This is what the attic looks like. Could we have cluttered it with junk? Sure. But we decided to just have a single rocking chair with Billy by a window, a kind of a box in the corner with this light with, no lampshade, this stark, brightly lit, not brightly lit, but this bulb that's kind of shining off, in the corner. And it feels, dirty, but bare. It's bare to the what am I trying to say? It's that, I know what I'm trying to say. It's that that feeling of like it's hard to articulate, but it relates to who Billy is, right? It relates to who he is, how he doesn't have anything left. There's nothing there. It's just him in a rocking chair, right? He hasn't moved up there. He doesn't, he's not hanging out up there with a couch and boxes and a TV. He's just sitting there. It seems strange.
Right.
It seems weird that he would just be sitting there in the corner with this light and this phone. It seems very strange. And that again, that was a deliberate sort of thing that we wanted to have, that stark contrast, this uncomfortable sort of nature of what we're looking at. If we were making a remake of the original, well, we might do that. Yeah. Put more shit in there because that's what they did in the original. Now, I don't want to speak for you, Dave, but I saw that there and I thought that's a good point where fans have these expectations of what they're going to see or what they think they should see because of what they remember from the OG. And it's important that you remember, again, this isn't a fan film of that movie. It's an extension of the story. So it's not the same attic. It's a different place and time, completely. But I think we've talked about Billy and why we did what we did. I think
our
we
approach
did that.
into creating the story and so it's great. Like there's so much that we can talk about.
And we will take your questions. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Let's go to Agnes. Let's talk about Agnes.
Okay.
Because this is one that just 1 second here. This is I think that's, oh boy, hang on.
Yeah, because we found that people had two different reactions to Agnes, at least from what I've seen, and Dave might have seen a few extra comments, but we, folks were either, some folks had said, it's kind of predictable, and I was, or they might have phrased it as I was suspecting that character, from jump, and that's cool, and we anticipated that some people would, and then there's plenty of people that we had hoped as filmmakers that we would do a good enough job that folks would get to the end and go, oh, it's Mrs. Crane, great, and then she says, don't worry, dear, just call me Agnes. And there's some comments that some people have said, as soon as she said that line, I was like, oh, shit.
It's true.
And that's the kind of reaction we had hoped for.
We want people to understand that is not a nod to the 2006 movie. We understand, that the 2006 film has Agnes in it. They took what was in the original and developed it into something very strange and peculiar, and that was what they did. But this is, and I said on Twitter the other day, I said, in order for something to be a nod, you have to like what you're nodding to. Right. You don't nod to shit you don't like.
Otherwise, it's not considered a
Otherwise,
nod.
It's not considered a nod. So, no, we weren't nodding to Black Christmas 06 because it's a shitty movie. But what people have to understand is that we like the idea of Agnes was established in the original film. And even Bob Clark has said that he imagined Agnes being Billy's sister who was abused by Billy, sexually, physically, whatever, we don't know for sure, but certainly, and maybe, in Bob's mind, if it was just one movie, maybe he killed her, maybe he killed his whole family. I mean, that is, a theory as well that is, out there. Maybe that's the case. And if there was just one movie, you could live on forever thinking that, and that he killed Jess too. But with the character of Agnes, we wanted to, we knew what they did in the 06 version, but it wasn't, it was hammy, it was cheesy, it was carnival, it was Rob Zombie-ish, it was just and not that you can't have fun watching it when you watch from a certain point of view, but clearly people who've seen it know what I'm talking about. But this is OG. This is, we wanted to bring Agnes into the story in a way that felt mature and grounded, not hammy and campy. We wanted our whole movie to be mature and grounded with the approach, because that's what the OG was like. Yeah. And so although I do understand people's association with Agnes in 06, because that's the only other time they've ever seen it, thanks 06. But in reality, this Agnes character is from the original movie, not the 2006 movie. That wasn't its inception. Right. And and we do know that Agnes is Billy's sister. I mean, that's of course that's the likelihood is that is who this baby is. So that's not, again, we're not taking that from the 06. That's sort of out there. That's commonly believed. And we wanted to bring the character of Agnes into the story that surprises people. And again, this is part of the story that creates new questions.
Right.
Who is this character? Are they working together? No, Billy should be working alone. I've seen all that kind of jazz too, but there's a lot of stuff you don't know yet about that relationship, about where it's going, what's happening. There's a lot of stuff that we've talked about that is very deep in terms of the maturity of the story. And we would probably have to be quite careful how intense we go with it, and their relationship and that dynamic. But we wanted to bring Agnes into it because Agnes is such there's so much opportunity to develop that part of the OG when Billy says something to the effect of, he's doing his crazy thing and he's like, you touch the baby, or, don't touch the baby, or, don't touch Agnes, Billy, or whatever it is. Right. And that's a moment that you take that and you go, okay, well, 06 took that and went and did this. Right. And we thought, okay, well, let's fuck 06 for a minute. Let's go back to that, take it out of the pot again and go over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Ideas were all derived from the original.
Yeah.
There was I can say with full certainty, there was no deliberate influence from the 06.
None.
Version.
We didn't even pay attention to it.
Not at all.
No.
I'm going to admit I haven't even seen the 06 version.
I've seen it. It's garbage.
I purposely chose not to watch it because I did not want the influence as a filmmaker. I knew Dave had watched it, and Dave was able to steer in certain directions because there were some ideas that we came up with, and then he would say to me, "Nah, that's too much like what they did in 06 or whatever," and we scrapped those ideas.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just, no, I haven't seen it, and I'm not interested to see it because I don't want to be influenced by it. And so I can say with certainty, just based on that point alone, no, this was organically developed just from watching the original and only playing with the ideas from the original, because in crafting this story, we made the decision that's the only one that matters in this, in the context of creating our film.
That's right.
And that's fine. The others exist, and that's cool. They're their own thing. But we made a choice to make this a sequel to the original.
That's right. And when you watch the 06 version, I mean, it's a listen, again, I understand it has its fans and you can watch it from a certain point of view where it's just dumb fun. I get that. But it makes in my opinion, it makes a mockery of the maturity and the more serious approach of the OG. And, so we didn't want to do that with Agnes. We thought that there was untapped potential with this character. Yeah. And we thought it would be interesting to bring this character into the universe, but not go this direction, go that direction.
Yeah.
And keep it mature and grounded. Who is this character? Are they working together? It might seem like it, but maybe not. I mean, what is their relationship like? Why, she's obviously younger than he is. You have to think about all those things. She was sexually and physically abused and there's a lot of things you can play with there, whereas Billy is clearly a psychotic, but not, he can't function in society. Yeah. Billy can't function. I mean, he can't hold a job. He probably has never been able to hold a job. He's a schizophrenic, psychotic, God knows what under the sun, and he cannot function in society at all. But as we know, there are also functioning psychotics who can hold a job, who can be your next door neighbor who you have over for a barbecue, and you would never know. Yeah. And it is usually because they experienced, that's no excuse, but usually when you go back and look at their history, it is because of some sort of deep trauma that they experience themselves, sexual, physical, emotional, whatever the case is. And they then they repeat the cycle and, whatever the case is. But so there's a certain level of maybe this character is a functioning psychotic as opposed to not. There's so many things that are on the table that I say that because I want people to understand that we're not Lucasfilm. We've thought long and hard about the potentiality of all those things. I'm not saying that we're doing that. I'm just simply saying that there are those ideas that go through your mind when you are creating characters and you are pushing narratives forward. This isn't an 06 nod, and it was just haphazardly done because we thought it was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think when we're talking about Lucasfilm, we're just really talking about The Last Jedi, because I love so much.
Well, we're talking about
the IP.
Yeah, we're talking. Well, yes, yeah, of course, we're talking. I think it's obvious we're talking about the sequel trilogy as a whole. I think is probably what we're talking about. Shout out to Lucasfilm, we love you.
Yes.
so that's that. I mean, that's and shout out to Carol Coltman, of course, who played Agnes.
Yeah,
she was tremendous, professional.
Like just getting I remember we had a lot of conversations, and she asked some fantastic questions, both in our table reads and on set, just trying to get the right delivery of some of those lines in the car at the end, because it was so nuanced. It had to be right on point, like just right. And we did several takes of the shot, obviously. And then the one that we landed on that we put in the film, it's one of my favorite performance moments from the film, in that, just the chloroform goes over the face, the mask is off of this character completely, and just that moment of just the little flick of the hair after throwing the cloth into the back seat,
Mm-hmm.
She's fixing her brother's error, and just seeing that, and even though it's a profile shot, right, we're just seeing the side of Caro's face, her performance read clear. Like I could see it in the eyes.
Oh yeah, it was
great. You can see her thinking, and that's what makes an actor fantastic. Is you see that the wheels are turning, and I think this was something she had said in the VIP screening that we met with everybody. Carol was on with us, and someone had asked her a question about her character, and she had mentioned something to and I'm paraphrasing sort of very loosely, but speaking to the idea of as a character, there's not a lot of on-screen time that I have. But there's a lot going on with my character. We're just not exposed to it in this particular story.
Right.
But each moment when I have a line or there's a moment that's coming out, there's a lot behind everything that's coming out of my mouth and everything that I'm doing. So there's a great weight to her performance in each of those beats, in each of those moments.
I said to her
she nailed that.
Yeah, I said to her the other day, I said, your part may have been small, or I said something like your part may have been small, but your role was huge.
Yes.
It was so impactful and so integral to the twist and the next steps of the story.
Yep.
I said to you guys, this is going to answer questions, but it's going to create new ones. And that's what you want. That's good writing. I'm not saying everybody's going to agree with what we've written, but if you are writing something episodically, that's what you want to do. And you want it to be intriguing and interesting enough. And I saw somebody here said that Bob Clark worked on the 06 movie. He did. He was an executive producer on the 06 movie, but he wasn't a writer and he wasn't a producer. He was an executive producer. So he gave his blessing, as far as I know. But people have to understand that when you are an executive producer in film, as I've said many times on this channel, that can mean a number of things. You can you can be hands-on to a degree, and it can be in name only. I know Bob Clark gave his blessing, but in terms of the any ideas or writing or things like that, he's not credited for that at all. And if he did have a substantial hand in that, by WGA rules, he would have to be credited as a writer, and he's not.
Right.
So I know he gave him, again, his blessing, and whether he liked the movie or not, I don't know. And he came on board and maybe offered some thoughts and, some tidbits and things like that. But how integral Agnes, I do not believe that Bob Clark's vision of Agnes is what Agnes became in 06. Let's just say that. I would have a very difficult time believing that So again, folks, executive producer can mean something, and it can mean fuck all in film. In film, in television, like I always say, they're called showrunners, and in television they mean a lot.
Yeah, it's
because
a very different role. Yeah.
because a showrunner can last a whole season or series, whereas
usually.
directors change from episode to episode.
Yeah.
So
it's your showrunner that gives you it's a very distinctly different role.
Yeah.
And new, I would say, within the last.
Well, it's essentially
10
an
years.
executive producer, but they call them showrunners.
Yeah,
now.
but they're more than that too. Like
Yeah.
they're like a
They're like a.
creative director.
I was just gonna say that.
They're a creative director because they will see it all the way through. Like someone like Jon Favreau for The Mandalorian, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm not mistaken, he's the showrunner for that, is he not?
I believe so.
Yeah, and Dave
Filoni.
So the two of them together, they are what create the continuity throughout. And I love that show. And it's a fantastic show.
Yeah, it is.
And they've done in my opinion, some of the best Star Wars work on The Mandalorian in those 2 seasons. Like things that they've introduced and the fan service that they've provided, and like they hit the mark. They are doing what I wish the feature films had really delivered. And that's no knock to J.J. Abrams too, because like we understand how much work it goes into making a movie and like what you're left with. And I'm not going to get onto a big
let's not do that.
But I'm just saying, like, respect. There's a lot of understanding, and I come at it with my opinions and stuff too. But and I get it. And there's a lot of.
But back to Agnes for a second, because it's true. We just want people to know that all decisions we made were carefully thought out.
Yeah.
Nothing was arbitrary, including Agnes.
That's right.
But we wanted to go back, bring Agnes in, but do it right.
Yeah.
So it's
Make it smart.
Make it smart.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of potential with this character. And I think you can see that. When you look at Agnes in 06 and you look at Agnes in our film, it's night and day. I mean, completely different portrayals, completely different approaches. You know what I mean? And there's a level of maturity to our film that is not in the 06 movie. And that's on purpose. That's on purpose for sure. There's something else I was going to say too, I was going to say something and I forget now. What was I going to say? Don't you hate when that happens? Something to do with the ending there. I was going to say that just her performance, even at the beginning too, when they're first introduced to her, and Caro has that. I mean, listen, I know people are like, I think that somebody's going to be somebody's.
Yeah.
And listen, there's a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum. You're watching a horror movie.
Yeah.
So there are people, and I'm not knocking anybody, but there are people that are like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. It's like, well, listen, I would probably say like 8.5 times out of 10 when you're introduced to somebody, like an older person at the beginning, they end up, it's a horror movie. It's like, it's not really, I mean,
they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason. But what's interesting is that through our marketing campaign, we never showed her.
No.
We never interviewed her. We never showed a photo. We never did that because we didn't want to draw attention.
She never showed up in a teaser or
She never showed up in a teaser or trailer because we didn't want to draw attention to that she may be important.
Some people didn't even know that she was even in the film until after they watched it. Yeah.
And when we were introduced to her, we said to her, play it straight.
Yeah.
Play it straight with a hint of maybe something, but play it straight. And she did. And there's a moment when she says, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I was a huge fan. I read all of your grandma's books, including the Belmont murders. And then she kind of stops and she's like, she was an incredibly brave woman. But the way Caro delivers that line is it can be interpreted both ways.
And that's what I love about it,
which
because
is
she just
so
really
great.
conveyed, because we talked a lot about, even with the cinematography with Greg, about trying to establish some subtext into these shots, and then trying to also carry that into the performances. And this is where all of the ladies and Brian, they did a fantastic job at that, but especially with the dialogue, because it was all of the ladies who really had all of the bulk of that. And so shout out to them, because it was tremendous work, and Caro worked very hard to find that right placement. And that's one of the things that I think is such a joy as a director, being able to work with thinking actors. Yeah. And very much appreciate that. So it was awesome.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. It was really, really cool. So that's Agnes, folks. Let's see here. What else we got? I wanted to show, let's talk about Sam for a moment. Let's talk about Sam. So Sam, of course, played by the incredibly talented, hang on a second, I'll get my
Victoria Miro.
Victoria Miro, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Victoria, if you're watching. I didn't forget your name. I was trying to move your character name down to the bottom. Sam. So Sam, of course, is the granddaughter of Jess Bradford, and she has lived a life that, you know, I mean, she's had a pretty tough, not a very difficult life where she was abused or anything like that, but she did not have a very good relationship with her mother. Her mother was an alcoholic, became an alcoholic, primarily because her mother herself had a difficult relationship with her own mother, which was Jess Bradford. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you will see that in relationships, you will see that a parent will have a very difficult time with their own parent, but that their parent will have a better relationship with their granddaughter or grandson. You saw it in Halloween 18, right? Where Karen has a sort of a strained relationship with Laurie Strode, but yet Allison has a better relationship, right? Because there's more of a disconnect there. Yeah. And I think too, what ends up happening is that Laurie Strode in Halloween 18 was more like Allison than her own daughter was. And I think you tend to see that a lot. There's a lot of personality traits, a lot of things that grandparents will see in grandchildren that they tend to relate to more, especially as they get older, reminding them of more maybe of themselves. And that's why that line that, you know, Emma says, you're not like her, you're strong like your grandma. Yeah. And that's not to say that her mom was this loof and a piece of garbage, not at all. Her mother just obviously had a very difficult time living in the shadow of her own mother's success, because their relationship, as it's said in the movie, became all about, you know, Jess Bradford being the, you know, the Belmont, you know, murders, you know, and all this stuff. I mean, it was just, she just never connected with her own mother, really, and eventually, of course, drove her to alcoholism and God knows what else. And but Sam had a better relationship with her grandma. Yeah, and it was that relationship that was so important to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Sam's character is very much caught in the middle.
Right.
She's
exactly
in between these two characters.
That's right.
You know, she longs for the. She longs for more of that loving connection with
stabilization.
Her mother. Yeah, and stable. Yeah,
stability.
Stability with her mom.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily given to her because the alcoholism is what creates that barrier.
That's right.
And that's her own mom's issues, struggling with that and the damage in her relationship with her mother, right?
That's right.
Which is Jess. And you know, just really seeing that ripple effect down the generations. So you know, I'm not really sure I have much else to add. You've really captured it well.
I was just going to thank you. I was just going to say that I think and these are things that as writers and directors you think about and you flesh out as you're writing. Even things that don't end up in a story, in a first chapter or in a first film, you as a writer and a director have to know where you're going. Yeah. You have to know the backstory of the characters. Yeah. That's why in character breakdowns that are sometimes given to actors, and I get them all the time as a voice actor, I will get a character breakdown of, say, this cartoon that I'm doing, and it's this long, and you know, it's this long thing about the character's likes, dislikes, what the person's, and things that the average viewer is never gonna know. No. But it helps the nuances of the performances, so the actor can think of those things as they're performing, and it comes out sort of in subconscious ways to the viewer. But with So anyway,
because those are the things that help you craft the performance.
That's it.
And so it helps you bring the reality to it, so it's not fake or contrived.
Exactly.
It gives a level of realism and groundedness.
Exactly. Yeah. So even though some of the things that I've said here about their past, we didn't reveal in this first chapter, those are things that we were talking about and we knew about, because it helps you write those moments then that much better. It helps them, they're more fleshed out, they're more richer. Yeah. And as you just said too, which is bang on, you as a director then are able to direct and get the performances you need, because you're able to communicate this, what I've just said to you, to the actors on set in the moment.
It gives you a common language.
Yes.
When you're working with the actors.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're both coming from the same reference point. And then if you can both understand that reference point,
Yeah.
you allow the performer the room and the breathing space to craft that performance. You need to provide them with enough direction, and sometimes more than other times.
That's right.
And that usually, I think for me, really comes down to when there's a very specific vision that you have in mind for that image you're trying to create. And you really need them to land that line a very particular way because it's going to communicate something or reveal something in a certain way, but that's part of the artistic craftsmanship of it all, because and that's where the collaboration comes in. That's what a big part of it, what makes it so much fun
for sure
is working through that, problem solving that. And then
when we were writing the script, I always imagined that that Jess was not a bad mother. She wasn't a bad mother, but I think she, especially early on, I think, when she wrote this book to help with her therapy and to help sort of get over this, it was very traumatizing for her, but she became obsessed with it. She became obsessed.
It absorbed her.
It absorbed her, as it sometimes does with people.
Caused neglect to her daughter.
That's right.
And there was a lot of, like Sam says, it's like their relationship was defined by the moments of that whole event.
That night,
So, there might have been a large amount of protectionism over this daughter, feeling suffocated and constantly protected. There could have been a lot of, isolation, unintentional, just because it's like, they're so, Jess is so absorbed with the writing of this manuscript and, getting the book out there, telling the story, all of the fame that goes with it.
Talk shows, the interviews, the anniversaries.
And then, you've got this child that you're supposed to be raising, but the parent in their mind is thinking they're protecting, but in fact, sometimes they're doing a little bit more damage than they might realize.
Exactly.
And then it results in that child having issues. But then, as Dave said, the separation of the granddaughter, it's a generation separated. So it's a fresh perspective and you see things differently. So sometimes there can be a little bit more of a connection with that older generation. So and these are the layers that we talked about as writers, as directors. We also talked about it with Victoria during the table reads and on set. And I think that really helped her understand, especially in those moments, directing on the porch and stuff like that.
These are the depths you have to go when you are taking it seriously. When you're making a real movie and you want real performances and you want, to do justice to the IP and to the OG and hopefully make people proud, ourselves proud, the cast proud, the crew proud, the fans proud. We took it. And again, that doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with everything you've done,
right?
But we worked very hard to take it seriously and really think about this, not just, okay, so it's going to be about her granddaughter and she's just kind of upset because her grandmother's dead. It's like, no.
Billy's going to kill them all.
Yeah, Billy's going to kill them all. That's it. No, we need to think about this from a realistic standpoint. What are the ramifications? What are the psychological effects that happen during trauma? Trauma. I know. Jamie Lee Curtis says that. I get it, folks. People are going to chat, are going to laugh.
Well, it's real though.
But it's real. It's real.
We wanted it to be grounded.
We wanted to be grounded in reality, and I think I think we did a good job of it, and I think Victoria and the other, I mean Shelby, Malika knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
I think they did such a good job. Yeah. Shelby's performance was so nuanced and great, and Malika's was so great too. I mean, just the three of them together, in case you were wondering, we have seen this too a lot, people saying that it felt like the chemistry between them they had great chemistry. And I think the reason for that is because, and this is not a rule of thumb, we just did this because we were ready to do it. We cast them so early. We cast them, I think it was March of 2020.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And they themselves, on their own, away from the table reads, they exchanged numbers. They would have I think they even said they'd have Zoom calls with a glass of wine or something.
We had no idea.
We had no idea.
It was
we weren't even in on that.
table read that they were like, we chat offline. I'm like,
oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Great.
But that's great. And they've since become friends.
And that friendship came through when we were filming.
Came through.
Because they were, the time that they took to actually get to know each other, I think there's a genuine friendship that's developed. Yeah. And that played on camera. By the time we went to camera, they had already been friends for 6 months. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It was real, and it was great. And I think the dynamic was there. And anyways, all part and parcel of it. So, shout out to them
Yeah.
for that extra little bit, because that really helped make a difference.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let me see here. What else did I want to? Let's talk about mood. Let's talk about mood. So there's gonna be a couple things in here I want to touch on and answer a few questions, because I know that this. Where did Sam go?
Yeah. Do you want to go to questions after the mood piece?
Yeah.
Or,
No. Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me just get to. We are going to get to your questions.
Mood and
folks.
atmosphere. Mood and atmosphere.
And folks, I don't usually say this, but because there's a lot of them, if you want your question answered, super chat's probably best tonight. Just saying, because there's a lot of them. So Bruce and I probably won't get to non-super chat questions tonight. Just saying. Ordinarily, it's not this many that come in, but anyway, and you know us, we never shut up. So, okay, so actually, it's me. I'm projecting my insecurity onto you. So, I talk for a living. What can I say? So, okay, so here's the thing.
Mood and atmosphere.
It's the mood and atmosphere. I just want to make sure I'm not setting our levels so our levels are more correct together. So one of the things that people have said is they love the mood and atmosphere, of course, and like any horror movie, of course, there are questions that come in that I've seen from a few people, and I wanted to address it because I think they are good questions, but I think they are questions that have answers.
Okay.
And so one of the questions that I see is, well, hang on a sec. So you're walking around this house, and you don't turn on the fucking lights. Okay. Like what? What's going on? You don't turn on the lights? What? Hey, listen. If I knew there was, well, hang on. Although I understand that, there's two reasons why we didn't have her do that. Okay. The second reason, because there's a first reason.
Okay.
The second reason is because you have to think of it. Even though you're scared, right, and you're hearing the music. Right? And you're hearing the swell of the sound design, right? And you're hearing this music and what the fuck is going on, all this kind of stuff. The character's not. The character's not hearing the music. The character's not hearing the swell of the action, right? So when Sam hears a knock at the door, she thinks, well, that's kind of weird. That's strange. But she gets up out of bed and she starts walking down the hall, and she's walking kind of, creepily, right? Because that's what you do in a horror movie, right? She's a little, but she's not hearing those cues, right? As a character, she's not hearing that stuff. There's been many times where I've heard things, in the middle of the night, or I've gotten up to go get something or whatever, and I don't turn on a light, right? So you have to think of that. Number two is, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
And if we turned on all the lights,
it's not scary anymore.
We would destroy the mood and atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so there's something called, and you hear me say this a lot, and of course talk about this, there's something called cinematic language.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to take certain because there's two ways we could have done it. We could have had her turn on a light. We could have done that.
Yeah.
Or we could have had her do the old cliche of, oh, the power's out. And then you would have got people going, oh, the power. Oh, they did the whole power out thing.
So the alarm clock must be battery.
That's right. The alarm clock's bad. Oh, I guess Billy cut the power. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered what we did.
Yeah.
Somebody was going to say, that's a trope. That's a cliche, right? And certainly there are tropes in horror movies for reasons.
Right.
Horror movies are built mostly around the good ones. Our mood, atmosphere, look at The Others. The Others was brilliant because they built into the story that the children were allergic to light.
Right.
So it gave them the excuse then
it was really
to
well
shoot.
Justified.
Right. It was justified. You know what I mean? And it gave them the excuse. But 90% of the time when your characters are walking around homes, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit in the sense of that, well, it's a horror movie. Right. If she went around turning on all the lights, then, you lose the beautiful cinematography that Greg was able to do with light and shadow and moonlight and things like that. Why didn't Bob in Halloween turn on the light when he went to get a beer? Right? Why didn't, Laurie, I mean, there's a lot, it's like.
It's every horror movie.
It's every horror movie. Yeah. Bob went into the kitchen. I'll go get a beer. You give me a beer? Yeah, okay. Well, you get me one. Yeah. So he goes into the kitchen. Why isn't he turning on the light? Why? I mean, he's in there. Why does he turn on the light? Because it's a horror movie. You know what I mean? And so you see that a lot in films. And it's a fair critique in
Sure.
the sense of like,
Yeah.
well, I would turn on a light.
But it's
yes.
applying like real life stuff, and movies are fake.
Right. It's applying. I think that part of the logic is something that I would say, guys, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
We need to suspend our disbelief a little bit. We don't want to destroy the mood and atmosphere. Right? We want to be able to sustain that, right? And, you know, there's a plethora of movies that you love, that you adore, that you hold on a pedestal that do it too.
Right.
So let's remember that. And they do it for the same reasons we do it.
Yeah.
They do it for the same reasons we did it, I should say, is because they know, well, we can't have her going around turning on all the lights, because then all of a sudden, you know, you get Halloween 18. But so it's that kind of thing where, no, actually there was some okay moments in there with Moon. But so that's why we essentially did that. But my second point too, which was the first point that I talked about in terms of the character not hearing those things, that actually, it may sound like a cop-out, but that actually is important to remember, that the characters aren't hearing the music. They're not hearing the swells. They're not hearing those things. It's only the audience that is hearing those things. So the character is in a bit of a different position than the audience is, right? You are feeling really, really tense, but the character isn't necessarily feeling as tense as you. And of course, the same thing happens at the end of the movie when she goes up the stairs and she's walking, she goes back up the stairs and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, it's because it's a horror movie, and that's what happens in a horror movie. So we hope people will suspend their disbelief a little bit, but audiences are becoming more and more mature now than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And, you know, 30 years ago, this kind of stuff was done all the time. You know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, this kind of stuff was done all the time. Nobody complained. Nobody said anything.
Right.
But audiences are becoming more mature. They're becoming more analytical, and they're becoming more critical, and they're thinking of this in a real life kind of situation, although it's real, and they want to apply real life logic to stuff.
Yeah.
And although movies cannot be as an excuse to get rid of that altogether, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance, right?
Yeah.
So just wanted to address that. You know, ultimately, you wouldn't have the wonderful moody shit if when she got out of bed, she went click.
Yeah. No, it's true.
It's a horror movie, and I think it's important that we need to suspend our disbelief a little bit when we do that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to address too is that somebody asked me, well, hang on a second here. You know, so she goes up into the attic. People love the attic scene, by the way, which is great. I thank you so much.
Great.
People that have said, you know, you love the attic scene.
Great.
And people have said that, how was Billy calling her? You know, like, wait a minute. So the phone rings, and how was Billy, like, that's the phone he was calling downstairs to. So how was Billy calling that phone? Well, there's a phone missing, and there's also cell phones missing. Sam couldn't find her cell phone.
Right.
So I think people, again, we wanted to treat our audience very maturely. We don't want to spoon feed you everything. And I remember we had a long talk about that.
Yeah.
Where we wanted, and you were a huge proponent of that as well, where you said that, you know, we really want to treat our audience, you know, that they're, you know, we don't want to spoon feed them. You know, we want to allow them to fill in gaps on their own.
Yep.
We want to place things that are there, and if they are, you know, astute, and if they are paying attention, they can make those connections. We don't have to say, oh, in case you missed it. And in case you missed it, you know, logic would tell us that when Sam is, you know, on her bed searching for her phone, and then, you know, dumping her purse, she was trying to find her phone, and she couldn't find it. You know what I mean? And then so Billy is clearly calling her, likely, logic would tell us, from her cell phone or from one of the other girls' phones, or maybe even from the rotary phone that suddenly went missing. That's unlikely. That'd be weird if he's suddenly up there with another rotary phone. It's in our minds when we were writing, it's logically the cell phone that suddenly went missing. But you don't need to see him there with a cell phone to his ear. We wanted to treat our audiences a bit more maturely than that, right? Because as soon as she, you know, drops the phone and takes off, he's like moving around and like, where's the phone? You know, again, it's about not spoon feeding the audience. We wanted to really instill that sense of maturity in those moments. I sometimes think things are obvious, but then again, we're the writers and the directors, and we know that.
It's sometimes hard to have that.
And sometimes it's hard to have it.
Objectivity,
So I don't fault people if they were confused by that. I don't fault it for it at all. But certainly in our minds as directors, her phone went missing. Who's got it? You know,
Yeah.
who's got it?
Yeah.
And you know, yeah. Anyway, and then
Hang on.
what's the other? So there was that, and then I think that was it. Some of the questions that people had, but we'll probably see them in the chat too. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say about our process or the? I wanted to talk just briefly here on the where are we? 1 second. I want to bring it up so people can.
Our list of talking points here.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
I think the one thing that I'll say just while you're taking an opportunity to look that up is that, you know, there's been some really great feedback. I haven't read all of the comments. Like there's a lot.
I haven't
to
either,
read,
but
and
there's a lot.
I'm doing my best bouncing back and forth between all the different platforms, trying to read it all. And I'm sure that there's posts happening in places that I don't even know exist yet, which is super cool. And it's just, it's exciting to see that engagement. And it really tells me that even if folks have some critique or criticism about it, or if folks really love it, anything in between, it still all represents the same thing to me as a filmmaker, that you're clearly engaged. And that was definitely the goal. And I love that. Yeah. And it's, you know, and it's just great to have, you know, and it is. It certainly helps to feed some ideas, getting some of that feedback too, you know, and we'll take some of that into the next piece and taking a look at that story and helping us to craft that and make decisions there. That's it. But we also listened to a lot of the audience and what they had to say going into this project. That's right. And what people had to say about the past films. That's right. But you know, but again, it's important people, you know, remember that it's a fan film, but it's an extension of the story. Yeah. So things are going to change. It's not that they change, it's how they change. Yes. It's what is your approach and how are you honoring, you know, how are you honoring it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Honoring the characters, the IP. Yeah. So the ending and future here. So we can't talk too much about the future, but the ending was something that we felt very strongly about in terms of the reveal of Jess Bradford being alive. And I'm so glad we were able to shoot that. Yeah. And I've seen people say that, so there's two ways. If we did not want to make another part to this, if we did not want to continue the story, then Bruce and I would not have ended the movie in the way that we did. That is irresponsible storytelling. Right. That's just, you know, that's too emotional of a cliffhanger to just end a story there. That's ridiculous. That's perfect for a season finale. It's perfect for a season finale. Yes, perfect for a season finale. And then Netflix will cancel the show after that, and then you don't know where it goes. Yeah. But if we were just going to end it without any ideas, no intention to make another part, we would have ended it on Shelby in the back seat. Because then that's a moment. You just assume that Sam was probably killed, and you know, it's a fair assumption. It's the same level of assumption that you assume happened with Jess. That's right. That's right. It's no different than that, really. That's right. And but we went further with it because we have ideas and we want there to be an opportunity for us to do that, hopefully. And again, that all depends. Obviously, this is not a theatrical release, so we can't judge it based on box office numbers. So we are paying close attention to views. We are paying close attention to thumbs up, thumbs down. We are paying close attention to what people are saying, reviews, the general consensus. Not everybody's going to like what you do, but the general consensus. What is the general consensus? And that will inevitably dictate whether we continue the story, if there's a need and a demand for it. But the ending was something that I was very passionate about because I wanted to... you know, we did approach Olivia Hussey for this installment. Yes. We did. She was aware of it. I know that because I believe she saw the Indiegogo teaser or something. One of the earlier teasers she saw. I think so. She's not. And she commented. She did comment because she had said that she thought. I think she said perfect for her daughter to play something like that very early on. Yeah, before we had, but we had already cast Victoria. Yeah. Her daughter actually is, I think, the same age, or maybe a year or two older than. No, I think actually. No, yeah, I think she's a year. I think she's 27 or 8. Okay. In India, I think actually is her first name. But anyway, so she was aware of the project, but I had reached out to her representative, which I believe is her husband, actually. I don't think Olivia Hussey is represented by any of the I mean, she
could be, but not that I could see. So I did reach out to her husband through their site and email, but I never heard back. And that's not surprising. That is usually the case when somebody approaches. I mean, her husband may also be very protective of his wife, and saw it come through and thought, no, that's not something, I don't know, right? I mean, he is her representative, and that's fair too.
And quite legitimately, there could be, maybe there isn't interest in reprising the role.
There could be that as well.
That might be fair too. Like actors
there could be that.
Outgrow the role, or just not have the interest. It's like, no, I did that then, but and that's fair and that's reasonable. It just is what it is.
100%.
But who knows? Or maybe it's just sort of not the right opportunities come up.
That's it.
Who knows, right?
So, but it is our goal. Obviously, if things work out, if it can work out, if it's feasible and logistically and everything under the sun that needs to be put in place for something like this to happen, if she ever sees this, we would love her to reprise her role as Jess Bradford in a follow-up to It's Me, Billy. We think that would be incredible. Again, I don't know how much of a role she would want or she would be interested in.
Right.
Hopefully a bigger role than just a cameo. But certainly, yes, it is our intention at some point. Maybe she'll see the film and she'll realize how good it is and how serious we took it and how we believe we honored her with respect and dignity, not just her, but her character, but her as an actor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Yeah. But yes, that is our goal, is to continue the story with Jess and Sam, who are locked in the basement. That is the basement, by the way, of that same house.
Yeah.
And then of course the next chapter, it's like, how are they going to get out? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that Sam will learn. Sam, the character of Sam made some decisions in It's Me, Billy, that I could see a person saying, well, I wouldn't have done that. That doesn't make any sense, because she's still coming into her own as somebody who has that strength. And it's her grandmother is there now to remind her that she's like her grandmother. You know what I mean? So you're going to see that it's important. And this is great too, because it's earned, then it's developed, it's earned. It's not a Mary Sue.
No,
it's built into the narrative and a great story. And then of course, if we get to do the next one, Billy will be fucking badder than ever. So,
yep. And think about it. Now you've got this face off between Jess, her granddaughter, Billy, and Agnes. And, we'll justify for you why they chose to keep them both alive and what happened.
Of course, all that's going to make sense.
How is it that she thought that her grandmother died and she's actually there? Like,
right,
who did they bury?
right.
And
that's another thing.
Those are all valid questions, and we'll answer those questions in the next one.
Yes, that's a good point. Well, that doesn't make any sense. How does she think there? I mean, did they not have a funeral? Was there not a funeral? Was there not? We've thought all about that. We've thought all about that.
Part of the master plan.
It's all part of the master plan. Just know that we are not arbitrarily just doing things because they sound or look cool.
No.
That's not good writing. It's not how you write a film. It's not how you write a story.
No. But for us, it's about thinking through, what if these characters were to meet again?
Right.
And what would happen then?
Right.
And that's sometimes some really exciting stuff that you can do in writing.
Right.
And sometimes writers will they craft the ending first.
Right.
They create a situation and go, how cool would that be? And what is that? And, and how interesting is that? And the high stakes and the excitement that goes with it.
Right.
And then working backwards going, how would we get there? How would we get there? And that's where you craft the journey to become very interesting and exciting. But, for us, it's about setting it up. And now, like, we would want this to be, the bookend, as though it were a trilogy. And this would truly be the conclusion to the story.
And then
and brings it to a logical
third
act, because it would be the third act of the larger arc of the stories.
Correct.
And it's a perfect setup where now you have your main antagonist and your protagonist, like,
it comes to a head. And what's cool too is that
it's super exciting, like ultimate stakes.
If we have an opportunity to do the next chapter, it would likely be a similar length of film.
Right.
And then if you piece them together, you have like a feature length film. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's kind of cool in and of itself. Just saying, if Blumhouse wants to talk to us, we're
and there's plenty of ideas we have that we would fill the pockets and flesh things out even more.
Oh, of course. So please understand that we do understand the questions. We do understand that, but if you remember, I said, we're going to answer questions and we're going to create new ones.
Yes,
Remember when I said that?
Yes.
I've said that many times.
Yes, you have.
And that's on purpose because we designed it episodically. And I couldn't tell you it was episodic because that would let you know that we had an intention that it was going to end in a way that would leave things open. And I couldn't tell you that. So now you know. Now you know. Apollo Balboa 985 says, how did Billy or Agnes get in the original green phone from the sorority house? Well, you'll have to wait. You have to wait and find out, right? You'll have to wait and find out. Oh, by the way, too, that phone, I'm surprised, maybe this is too much of a deep cut. The phone in the attic. Yeah. Now, obviously, it's not the actual sorority house phone from 1974, but it is supposed to be, it is the same kind of phone. It is an actual late 60s rotary phone. It's not a prop. I mean, it's a prop, but it's not like fake.
But it's actually
it's an actual phone.
Time,
it's from that time period. Yeah. It's the olive green phone. And the number you see when there's that smash zoom, that 70s smash zoom that we love, the number you see on there is the same number you hear the lineman, I think they're called, who was talking to the operator in the original Black Christmas. Do you remember the scene when the guy who was going to tap the phone picks up the phone and talks to the operator, and he just wants the operator to call the phone back to make sure it works, and he says the number, and he says it's 554-1169 or whatever the hell the number is. He says that, and I took that and I wrote that number and placed it on the phone. Yeah. So it's a bit of a deep cut, but that tells you, for the hardcore fans, that phone is the phone from the sorority house.
It's supposed to be that. Yeah.
So I will wonder, well, now people know, but I wonder how many people picked up on that it's not just, that's the number. You know what I mean? So when you watch the original Black Christmas, listen for that number that you see, listen for the guy that's tapping the phone to say those exact digits. Yeah. Cause that's what it is. Cool. We shout over to questions.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Let's go to your questions, folks. You guys are amazing. I knew that was going to happen. Let me go. Hang on one second here. I'm going to have to go into another spot because YouTube is lame. Yeah. 1 second. I'm going to go here, and it's going to go to monetization and then supers, and then open this up. Okay. Let's scroll all the way down. Okay. Here we are. Okay, so we have Daniel Hirel says, Dave and Bruce, he sends in $4.99. Thank you, buddy. Says, Dave and Bruce, the movie was unbelievable. God bless. Yes, let's put it on the big screen in Times Square. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I love that so many people have said that it belongs on the big screen. And thank you. Like, that's such a wonderful compliment. And thank you. Like, for everybody that has said that.
Really appreciate
it means a lot because it that's what we were aiming for. Like we said, we approached it.
Well, that's it.
Professional level.
The movies you see on the big screen are shot with the equipment we used. So that's why it looks like it
is the same
stuff. It looks the exact same stuff.
Yeah. And same crews.
Yeah.
Like it's the same.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why it looks like it, the way it does. David Coe sends in $9.99. Thank you, David, and says, I am fascinated with how long it takes to shoot even simple scenes. So in your estimation, very good point. In your estimation, how long did it take to shoot the simple 5-second clip of Justine and Emma walking up the stairs to get settled? With the jib shot, I guess, up the stairs. Oh, we shot that 3 times.
Yeah. So, and that's where I think a little context around the question, when you say to me as a filmmaker, how long did it take to shoot it? I would incorporate the setup time.
The setup time in that.
So the general process that you go through on set is that you're going to block it, then you're going to set stuff up, your equipment, light it. So block, light, then rehearse, shoot.
Right.
Is the essential workflow. So we spent
Just that. What was after that? We went upstairs.
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
shot the stuff outside
and then
of
came
the house.
inside.
I think that was the first scene that we set up for after lunch, wasn't it?
I think so.
And that lasted at least a few hours. Like I want to say at least 2-3 hours.
Well, not that one shot, but I mean the.
But it was the same setup.
It's
right?
the same setup.
Because
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we did is we had, excuse me, we tried to be as economical as possible when filming as well, because
Correct,
that was
yeah.
critical.
Yeah.
So Dave and I spent a lot of time working with Greg, sort of hammering out the logistics of every shot. So the jib that was set up, we decided, okay, we can get the shot coming up on the front door, right, with everybody entering. And then we were able to reverse and just simply pivot. We don't have to reset the track or anything.
No, you just pivot the camera.
Just pivot the camera, turn it around facing the other way.
Yeah.
And that's just because of we're leveraging the layout of the space and operating within it. And then we were able to, get them coming up the stairs. So filming it, I think, yeah, you're right. We filmed it like maybe 3 times. The actual like 3 takes.
2
of them
times
going
with the
up.
girls.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to get one without anybody.
Yeah.
For the trailer.
Yeah. And so, the actual moment we say action to the time that we yelled cut at the end of the 3rd take, maybe that was, I don't know.
2 hours maybe?
No. Just that one little.
just that one little
bit,
block?
like maybe like 20 minutes. Like there's a lot more time spent setting up than there was
Like the
actually
actual-
taking to film it.
Yeah, and that's what it's like in any movie you do.
Yeah.
You will always
A lot of setup and prep.
you will always take 2 or 3 hours to set up a shot that's going to take 5 minutes to shoot. I mean that is not uncommon. That's actually more often than not how it is. I mean that's sort of a very generalization, but certainly I would say that you're on point.
Just
with
that bit, like maybe
Yeah.
20-30 minutes just to
Yeah.
get that bit, but then there was like another.
I would say so.
It takes a bit to set stuff up.
Yep.
And, yeah.
I would say. Let's see here. Let's keep going with this. We got, there we go. The Rusty Lion sends in £5 from across the pond. Thank you, Rusty. Says, absolutely love the movie, guys. I shared it with my subscribers, hoping for a sequel to the sequel. Thank you, Rusty. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Harmon Olson sends in $2. Thank you, Harmon. And says, older Billy should be 6'8" like Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween. No.
Is he really that tall?
Yes, Tyler Mane, the actor that played him, is 6'8". Yeah.
Holy shit.
Imposing guy.
That's like LeBron James.
It's huge. The Spiral Sky Project sends in $5 and says, I mentioned you rivaled and channeled High Tension 2003 and OG Black Christmas. Did you even once think about the film High Tension while making this? No. I know the film you're talking about. I've seen it. It's a great horror movie. It's called Switchblade Romance is actually its original title, and I believe it's High Tension is its North American title, if I'm not mistaken. It's a good movie. It's a psychological horror film. I can see aesthetically, I get what he's talking about, but no, that was never on our
I'll have to see that. I haven't seen it.
It's good. I think you'd like it.
Cool.
It's got a bit of a twist I think you'd like. Harry Hagen sends in $5. Harry, my man, says,
Harry.
congrats D&B. How is Jess considered dead throughout the film when there is no body? Wouldn't she be considered missing? Was it done for the twist end? No, it was not done for the twist end. Again, that goes back to making sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you approach an ending like that. Otherwise, you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. We can't tell you because that would give away what it would eventually be revealed in the sequel. But just know that there are reasons why she's wound up alive and the character don't know it.
Right.
There's reasons why. Is anything you want to add to that, or did I do okay there?
Nope.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Nothing more to add.
Nothing more to add. Nothing more to add. David Coe sends in $4.99, says, I thought it was funny in Cody's review when he said the 06 film sucked, but after the 19 film, he thought maybe the 06 film wasn't that bad. Well, yeah, I guess that's in relation to, right?
Yeah.
It's relative. The
saw
06 movie is, it's
I haven't seen it, so I can't really
it's-
comment on it.
it's nothing. It's if you watch it in a vacuum, it's a weird 90 minutes that you can kill. You know what I mean? But it's not like it's completely different than
Right. Yeah, and again,
than the
I
OG.
purposely didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to be
Yeah, it makes sense.
influenced by it. But
No, it makes sense, dude. Totally. The Random View sends in $10, says, are there other genres you'd like to work on?
100%.
Yeah, Bruce, definitely sci-fi for you.
Yeah. Science fiction for me, it's one of my favorite genres for so many different reasons. Because you can, I love the social commentary aspect of it. Like I would love to do a piece that, and I have a feature film idea, which I'm not going to disclose openly, but Dave knows what it is. And it's just a great opportunity. I love when social commentary is made and the audience is able to accept it, but it's presented in a new way, right? And I love visual effects and just how imaginative and creative those worlds are. Right. And I love the creation of those worlds. The other thing for me would be just a really well crafted drama, something that is very grounded, but like I love, action drama, but even just like some very meaningful, dramatic narrative of characters' journeys, right? Yeah. Just that. I know it's very broad stroke that I'm speaking to. It's true. But just to have well-developed characters that are grounded in real life with real issues that speak to the human condition and the human experience, that I would want the audience and people of different cultures and races and backgrounds and genders and what have you to be able to relate to and have an entry point into, that it's a film about people, and the struggles that people go through that define what it means to be human.
Sold.
Yeah.
No, I say that because
like in terms of original content,
that
would be the kind of stuff that
for me. I love sci-fi. I think the same thing. Science fiction for sure, because I'm a bigger picture kind of guy, and I like the idea of social commentary, but in a
like kind of a questioning kind of way.
Yeah,
because that's what I like about it, is that where it's like questioning, have you considered what would the world be like if it was like this?
Well, that or more of like our own existence in the universe. What does it mean in the bigger picture? And like I talk about Andromeda and, space-time and travel, like just
the shit's cool.
That shit's cool. And just shit like that.
Going to be a significant part of our human society, whether we want to accept it or not. Yeah. It's just, I think, a logical progression for humans.
Obviously, I'm a horror guy, so staying in the horror realm, I do have an original film called Port Robinson Road that I have written.
All mood and atmosphere.
It's based on true events from my second year of college, but it's not I say it's a horror film, but it's a horror. It's like a horror thriller drama. Like it's a very mature approach. It's not. It deals with the paranormal, but it's not your stereotypical Hollywood supernatural film. It's a very bigger picture, questioning the existence of consciousness. Where does the seat of consciousness lie? What does it mean? Death, all that kind of stuff.
It's more philosophical. Would that be fair to say?
I think so. I think so. But there is a horror element to it, obviously, because you got to entertain your audience.
Absolutely.
And if you do that well, within, if you can entertain your audience as the same time as delivering a message, you've hit a home run.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome sauce, as they call it.
Awesome sauce. That's right. Balon TV sends in $5. Thank you, Balon. Says, congrats on the film, guys. How was the writing process? Did you always have the ending in mind, or did it evolve while writing?
I would say it was a little bit of both. Like, we had the ending in mind, yes, and it was about, like, I think I would describe it as, like the writing process for us, it was like highly collaborative. And like I said, like it was us sitting here in Dave's studio, hashing out ideas, writing, I'd go away for a little bit because and then Dave would write a little bit more, and then I come back and we hash out more ideas and we talk and continue writing. And then
sometimes I'd send you it like in like a PDF.
Yeah. He'd come over and then we'd be like hashing out ideas and we bounce back and forth between imagining specific shots, combined with trying to articulate what the scene would be like. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of like we've always got the general sense of the story and where it's going to go, but then it's almost like putting the puzzle together and fitting the pieces in. And sometimes there's pieces that exist that we have a sense they're on the peripheral, but we don't really know that they're there. And then they come in, and that's where some very happy accidents happen, as they say, but happy accidents in the sense of it's like coming back to what I said when we lost the opportunity to film at the house, it forced our
Black
hand.
Christmas house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it forced our hand to redo the opening.
Right.
And we actually had a separate opening to have the film take place in a diner.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be like their pit stop along the way to Jess's grandma's house, or Jess's house. Sorry.
Yeah. So the conversation you see in the car
Yeah.
was actually going to be taking
be in a
place
diner.
in like a booth at a diner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because of COVID was really the wrench that got thrown into that.
True.
Where there was a couple of diners we looked at that was in the Ottawa area. Just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
COVID, it just made it way too complicated logistically and too many things that we had to worry about.
Yeah.
So then it forced our hand to keep it all to the house. And then we made the decision, well, let's just put the conversation in the car. That makes just as much sense. They're still on the road. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's where you have to evaluate as a writer. Sometimes when you change the location, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you change the location, there's very little difference.
Yeah.
So then you can sometimes ask yourself, well, do I need it to be in this other location, or can we simplify, which in turn can sometimes simplify the logistics of the filming, making it more economical to shoot. Like it's just fascinating. Like this is what I love about the process.
100%. I can't add anything more. It's exact. I agree with everything you've said. 100%. Rick W. sends in 1999. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Says, my big question coming out of my third viewing of the film. Thank you.
Cool.
How much is Agnes involved in Billy's psyche? I love the twist and think the actress played the part perfectly. She's extremely unsettling. You should see Caro in person. No. We love Caro. We know. But we can't say because that's more with the, I'll just say this. I'll say that I think a fair bit.
Yeah. And we'll definitely say, which is obvious, they're partners in crime.
Yeah.
Which I think goes without saying.
Yeah. But it's not in the ways that you think. Like in the sense of, it's not like it's like saying partners in crime is I think simplifying it.
Sure.
Just a much,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
there's a conscious
and
awareness.
I'm not really addressing the question.
Yeah, it's fair. Like it's not like they're Bonnie and Clyde and they're like this duo and it's not like that. I think what Bruce means is that there is a deliberate intention to have lured Sam. There's a deliberate. It's deliberate. There's a deliberate intention around this. It's not like they're doing this all the time. It's not. There's a deliberate intention. Let's just say.
Yeah.
I think partners in crime isn't actually quite the right way to say it, but I think it's more deeply layered than that.
Yes.
I think we'll say.
Yes.
But
I'm not really addressing the question.
Yeah. And he's
because it would give stuff away. And I just don't want to go there yet.
That's right. That's right.
You know us.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But always know that Bruce and I are always thinking about the original film.
Yes.
And honoring that creepiness and the integrity of that original film. We're not. This would never turn into 06, 19 or weird, strange, like, oh, it was good. And then in the third part, all of a sudden, it's like this crazy. Never with us. Never with us. It's very calculated and very precise. And that's why it takes so long to do and why things look so good. Bobby Brother sends in 549 euros. Thank you. Not 549 euros, 5.49 euros. Thank you. Dave, Bruce, you moved me to tears with your film. Amazing. Cool. You scared the hell out of me. This is one of the finest sequels I've seen. Unforgettable experience. Well, that's,
cool. Thank you.
You know what? I'm not good at taking compliments. So I just, thank you is what I will say.
Yeah.
I'm, it's like, wow, that's amazing. Appreciate that very much.
Very cool.
That's really awesome. Oliver Mercer sends in £5 and says, my biggest question would be who told Sam that her grandmother died? If she's alive in the basement room, plus didn't Olivia want to make a cameo? Olivia, no, we did not hear back from her. The intention was to have her at the end of the movie so that when she says grandma, you see her. Yeah. That was what we wanted.
To show her. Yeah.
We wanted to show her, and not just the grandma, Olivia Hussey. That would have blown the doors off everybody's chairs, I'm sure. I mean, if this already did, I can only imagine what actually showing her would have done.
Yeah.
And who told her grandmother we can't answer that. You have to wait. You have to wait. You have to wait, guys. You have to wait. That's the fun of it, isn't it? Tuning into the next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Michael McRae, I think is how you say it. MAKRI, McRae.
Okay.
Sends in 499, says, congrats on the film, guys. Very impressive. Most eerie shot to me was when the car door shuts and the blanket falls, revealing Emma's corpse.
Love it. Yeah, some people
terrifying.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have some behind the scenes of that I'll show you guys. It is it's awesome. It's cute. It's great. And we got, Calvonics Music. I think I'm saying that right now.
Yes.
Calvonics. I think I'm saying that right.
Shout out.
Shout out to Calvonics. Thank you, Shelby, for telling me how to phonetically sound that out. $5. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Says, just shouting out to both of you. Love the film and proud to have donated. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Matthew Foresi sends in $19.99. Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate that. Says, just wanted to say absolutely loved every minute of it. You guys absolutely killed it. Billy's psychosis felt believable and was very chilling. Also, fantastic acting and mood and atmosphere. You sounded just like Billy too. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
All the compliments there. Amazing. Yeah, I did my best to, again, it is not about repeating what you hear in the original film because we are 50 years later. So my mind was, where is Billy now? When I'm doing the voice on the phone, I'm thinking to myself, although I do want to give credit and a shout out to Brian Charles Peter, who played the physical embodiment of the character. That laugh you hear on the first phone call with Sam in the living room, that laugh, that maniacal sort of crazy laugh is Brian. That is not me. That is Brian. It is just as crazy as what you hear him during Justine's death scene. That is all Brian. And you know me, I give credit where credit is due. I am the voice of Billy like 99.998% of the time, but that one little percentage there, that moment, that's all Brian. He knocked it out of the fucking park. When I was going through all of the audio and I had that, I was like, I have to use this.
Yeah, it was great.
It is fantastic. Brian, if you're watching, you're amazing. We love you. So I had to use that. So that is Brian. Shout out to Brian. But my idea was, again, to bring the essence of the character there through the phone calls, but the things that Billy would be saying, I wouldn't be talking about warts and things that you heard him talk about in the original. I would be updating the dialogue to reflect today's story, today's circumstances, today's stakes, right? To give you clues and insights, just like they gave you clues and insights into sort of what was going on at that moment through those phone calls. My goal was to give you insight and clues into sort of, they're little puzzle pieces that are part of a much larger picture. So pay attention to what Billy is saying on the phone. And there are certain puzzle pieces and things in there. They're deliberately chosen.
Yeah.
There are things that you can
contribute to the backstory even, and
that's right.
help to answer the questions on how we got to where we are, and
that's
a little bit of what's happened in the last 50 years.
Bang on.
It's all purposely chosen.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Well said, Bruce. Thank you. Movie chat and more. No, I moved up too fast. Sweet Tea sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Sweet Tea. $20. Says, the tea is sweet tonight. I always say that when she sends in a super chat. Congratulations, guys. Love the movie, my friends. I can't wait to see the rest of the story too. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Oliver Mercer follows up with £10 and says, I absolutely loved it, guys. I know my dad would have loved it too, as he was a big fan. My question is, did you pass a thought in having Justine and Emma survive at all?
Not really.
I don't think so.
Because it was like a horror movie. Like that just came down to a very basic decision of, it's a horror movie and someone's going to die.
Yes.
So there's
People have
only
to die.
really two people we can choose in this movie because we're, and again, some decisions are made based on budget. Like you have to.
Yeah.
And any filmmaker will understand that. But it was like,
there's things. We can't say that.
We were sad that we had to kill them off.
Oh my God.
Such fantastic performers.
I remember,
wonderful to work with.
I actually came to the dining room table. We weren't shooting it. I think we had wrapped. And I came to the dining room table and the girls were sitting there. I think they were playing cards or eating or something. And I said, well, I think the next day we were killing Justine.
Right.
And I said, tomorrow's your death scene. And Maleka's like, I know. oh, she's all excited. And I'm like, and I'm not. I'm like, and they're like, you okay? And I'm like, you know what? And I said this to them. I said, guys, I really feel sad. I don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
But we have to because it's a horror movie. I genuinely felt like I didn't want to. And that's a testament actually to their performances, the believability, the relationship, the chemistry between those characters. I felt genuine sadness in having to, I did. I don't know if you did, but I did.
No, but it's
in pulling that trigger, destroying their friendship. I felt sad in having to do that. That was a real thing I felt.
Yeah, because we worked
even
hard,
though it's fake.
Yeah, we worked hard to craft the character development so that you care about these characters before anything happens to them, and that's not. It's not as common with horror movies.
No.
If anything, you care about the main protagonist that walks you through the whole journey.
Yeah.
But even then, they're usually individuals that are ripe with what's
they're
it
like
called?
They're maybe
flaws.
1.5 dimensional or 2-dimensional, not quite 3-dimensional.
We actually made the attempt. Like this was the thing, right? Dave and I. I remember us talking in the writing room, kind of going. We wanted to purposely. Provide depth. We wanted to create a dramatic element, and that part of this narrative is almost like a drama in a way, a darker drama, and that was very much intentional, and it gives greater weight to the performances, to the characters. You care about them more, and then when they're killed off, there is this grieving by the audience for the loss of these characters, and that is what we wanted, and we wanted to to sit you in it. Mm-hmm. To grieve the loss of that life, which is very different than what some horror movies do.
Yeah, the first half of It's Me, Billy is really a psychological drama.
Yeah,
and then the moment things change really is the
dining room scene.
The dining room scene is essentially the beginning of the second act.
Yeah.
And then it really, but things are still kind of light. The girls are, they're goofing around, they're talking. And then it's that moment where Sam says, something's always bothered me though.
Yeah.
And it's at that moment where you start to hear music, which you haven't heard a lot of in the movie up to this point. And you start to hear this music swell and Sam starts to,
coming in over the table.
That's right. Which is beautiful shot. That was a shot that we were so looking forward to doing.
Yeah.
We'd imagined it for months and months and months.
Yes.
Let's just go right over the table, just coming right up on her like this,
Yeah.
And shout out again to the crew that did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So great. And but that really is that's the beginning. And then you have the living room, and then things just progressively get darker and darker from there.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a real sort of horror movie beyond that. Okay, let's see if we can get through these pretty quickly here. We got but this has been good. You guys have been amazing tonight. Hopefully we've been able to give some insight here. Let's see, sweet Oliver Mercer. Movie Chat and More sends in £10, says, enjoyed the movie, but I was so deflated by the final scene. I know you guys had a low budget, but to work in that wheelhouse of mood and atmosphere, you need a longer movie for the payoff to work. I disagree. I respect your opinion, but I disagree. I think that I think the payoff worked. I think the payoff worked in my opinion. And I think what you would have gotten in a longer movie was you would have gotten more character development and maybe more depth and more context. But I think in our 42-minute runtime, I think we were able to, at least the general consensus from most people is, at least most people that I've heard from and that I've seen, is that those that love the ending because of that they didn't want it to end.
Right.
It was that moment of things were so well developed and was so interesting moving to that point that when it ended, it was like, oh, that's it? Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. So I respect your opinion, Richard. I think is your name. But I disagree. I disagree. I think, but again, you would have to say, you were deflated by the ending, but what would be the reason you were deflated? You were deflated because you didn't want it to end. You were deflated because you didn't agree with the creative choice.
Yeah.
You were deflated because you didn't buy it. You were, there's a, you know, I talk a lot on my channel about what is the measuring stick.
Okay.
So when somebody says to me, what do you think is the most iconic? And I said, well, define iconic. You know, what is the measuring stick, right? How is, I did a channel, I did a video on my channel about a year and a half ago where I gave a top 5 most iconic horror movie houses. And people are likely to choose their favorites because they're emotionally attached to it. So I knew that people are likely to say the Michael Myers house, right?
I imagine the houses that are, or things that are most memorable.
But the measuring stick for me was,
of the measurable?
yeah, well, yeah. And the measuring stick for me was, so what would be likely to be the most recognizable house to the average person on the street? Right? Not necessarily a horror fan, not a Halloween fan, not necessarily a movie fan, but the average person on the street. And I came to the conclusion that I think the Psycho house would be, to the average person on the street, the house in Psycho, when you see it, would be the Myers house was only used in one movie, right? When we're talking about the original Myers house. You show that to the average person on the street, and they might not know what is. You show the Psycho house.
Confuse it for the Freddy Krueger house?
Well, the average person, maybe, if they're taking a guess, perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm always talking about what's the measuring stick, right? And then we can sort of talk about what I think would be what. So I would ask you, Richard, if you felt deflated, what would be the reason you felt deflated on that? And then, but I disagree. I think it wrapped up well.
I think so, opinion. Yeah, especially when you think of it like an episode, like we.
That's right. It's
editing.
episodic.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's designed that way. And again, the reason why it's designed that way is because if you want to continue, you need a larger budget to do that.
Yeah. We wanted to give as much bang for the buck as we could, like delivering to the fans, because we made this for the fans.
That's it.
You know, and as fans, we made it, like for us too. So it's
Sean Sheridan sends in €5, says Blumhouse should watch It's Me, Billy to see how a sequel to a legendary film was done. Do you think a studio-backed Black Christmas sequel will ever happen? I don't know, but I hope if it does, they talk to us, because I think we know what we're doing personally. I'd like them to, at the very least. It'd be exciting. It'd be exciting to work on something like that. But no, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. In reality, I'm not that this isn't reality, but in terms of probability, I don't know. But I think what we've crafted is the right direction to go.
Yeah,
I think it's the right direction to go.
Yep. Otherwise, we wouldn't have chosen it.
That's it. Movie Chat and More follows up with £2 and says Unlawful Entry or Pacific Heights. I haven't seen Pacific Heights in years, so I'm going to choose Unlawful Entry.
I don't know.
There you go.
Entry or Pacific Heights.
Unlawful Entry is that one with what's his face? Ray Liotta, and it's a good movie.
Yeah, I apologize, but I'm not even sure that I've seen Unlawful Entry.
Okay. Unlawful Entry. It's years ago, like early 90s.
Yeah, I don't think that I saw it.
Okay. Okay.
We'll add that to the list.
All right. Nick sends in $10 and says, D&B. Not sure if you know this, but Steve Martin is a huge fan of the 74 OG Black Christmas. I did know that, actually.
I did not know that.
Yeah, once telling Olivia Hussey he's seen it 27 times at one time. If he sees It's Me, Billy, he just might reach out to her, hopefully. Well, somebody would have to let Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, yeah.
We're going to have to tweet Steve
Was
Martin.
he trying to date her, or was he just saying that? Because he...
Maybe he's just a huge horror fan. We're going to have to tweet Steve
We'll have
Martin.
to tweet at Steve Martin.
Like,
I love
Steve.
who doesn't like Steve Martin?
Yeah.
I love Steve Martin.
Yeah.
The Jerk, by the way, if you haven't seen his first movie, The Jerk, fucking hilarious.
Cool.
Big Bopper sends in $5 and says, why do movies film in Vancouver and call it New York? Should I live there? What if Blumhouse tries to take down It's Me, Billy video? Well, first part of your question, Hollywood films will shoot up in Canada. They'll shoot generally in Vancouver or Toronto. Yeah. Toronto stages for New York all the time. Actually, Toronto can stage for New York better than Vancouver can, because we have larger and taller skyscrapers and more of them. They generally just usually frame the CN Tower out of the shot. But it's for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is tax breaks, and it's cheaper to shoot up here because of our dollar. That is one reason for sure. Is a lot cheaper. And
No, 100%. There's a few factors that play into into it.
Yeah.
In Vancouver in particular, there's a strong base of studios. So there's a lot of studio work that happens, a lot of beautiful locations, of course, too.
Yep.
One of the other big draws to Vancouver and why it sees some of its activity is the geographic location and
Los
its
Angeles.
close proximity to Los Angeles.
That's right.
So logistically speaking, a producer can take a 3-hour flight up to, or I think it's maybe even shorter than that.
Might be.
Basically,
2.5 hours or something.
as a producer based in Hollywood, I could fly up to Vancouver at the start of my day, go visit on set, hang out for a good part of the day, chat with people, meet with people that I have to do, and then basically commute home via airline and be back at the end of the day and then move on to something else.
And
LA
sometimes
the
people
following
sit
day.
in traffic for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
no different.
So, that's a really big part of it. The other thing too is that in Canada we have developed the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is continuing to develop and mature. There's more studio spaces that are opening up, further training and development of crews. Calgary is a huge market where there's 2 new studios or 3 that have just opened, and more larger budget activity.
We got
happening
Pinewood
into
here in
that
Toronto.
market. Yeah, and Pinewood's been around for a while, the mega stage
Yeah.
and everything. There's more studios going up, and William F. White has a big role to play in that because that's
Yep.
one of the lines of business that the organization offers is studio space
That's
to
right.
major Hollywood productions. So it's a full suite of services, and that's
Yeah.
where, as an equipment rental house, it differs a lot from the model that exists in the States to some degree. Like it's starting to I don't know if I want to say mirror, but definitely the suite of services offered. It's really positioning itself as that one-stop shop.
Well,
in a
yeah,
way,
and it's- and-
very fairly so.
And when you have the infrastructure in place,
Yeah,
you have
the crews,
the crews,
the post
the post facilities, the studios, the
got the
sound
equipment.
stages, and it's cheaper
because of the difference in the dollar.
because the difference in the dollar. The dollar goes further here
Yeah.
than it does there. It's almost a no-brainer.
Yeah. So it costs you less to make the movie up here. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, there's federal and provincial tax credits that you can apply.
Correct.
Different percentages. Some provinces, it's an all spend. Some provinces, it's specific to a certain area of your expenses.
Yep.
And so forth. They're all very similar. Like
Yeah.
they're all very similar in nature. And there's certain criteria that you have to meet in order to access those tax credits.
That's why a lot of, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry to
But
interrupt,
that's
but-
essentially the essence
yeah,
of it.
it's why a lot of
a few key
crews
factors.
shoot in Atlanta as well, is because of the tax breaks.
Yeah.
The state of Georgia has done an amazing job to lure crews
Yeah.
in for that.
Yeah,
So
there are specific centers around the world for filming, and they follow a similar structure
Yeah.
for the most part,
Yeah.
and that's on purpose, and it's driven by money, absolutely,
correct.
because it costs a lot of money to make a movie.
A lot of money to make a movie. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Hi, I'm Josh, sends in $19.99 and says, hey guys, I couldn't donate to It's Me, Billy initial fundraiser due to COVID-related unemployment. That's okay.
no
Things are
worries.
better now, so here's my payment for admission. Amazing work and fingers crossed this gets noticed at all the right places. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Thank
we really
you.
hope so too, guys. The more people you talk to about it, if you really enjoy, I mean, if you didn't like the movie, then we don't expect you to share it. But if you really like the movie and you want more and you think we did a great job, and share it, or don't be annoying about it. But, nobody wants to shut up. But certainly share it and tell people about it and watch it again. I've already seen quite a few people actually say that they consider this canon. They consider it
Yes,
the
I've
actual
seen that.
sequel.
I've seen that,
And that
yeah.
when they
It's
watch
super
Black
cool.
Christmas, they're going to watch It's Me, Billy right after.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
And I'm
yeah.
just like, that's
Super
fucking
cool.
That's
Super
really
cool.
that's
Yeah.
like that's surreal in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, when we were making this movie, because we went through all the steps that you would go through to make a real movie, that's why it looks like a real movie, because it is a real movie, there were moments on set where it felt like we were making the sequel to Black
Yes,
Christmas.
yes, it felt
Many
like that
times.
authentic. Yeah, it
Many
was, it was
times.
awesome. It was
It was
awesome.
fantastic.
It felt
was-
great. It just
was-
felt right
It
to be there.
felt right.
Yeah.
It felt right, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Nick sends in $5, says, I applaud the decision of how subtle and creepy that line, "they're all dead" was, mixed into that one creepy phone call from Billy. Gave me the chills. Thank you. Amazing. Yes, I was busting out my extra creepy for that line. That's great. That's great. You know, that's great to hear, Nick, and thank you for the $5. Appreciate that. Hi, I'm Josh. Follows up again with $4.99. Says, Dave, one more question. How did you prepare to voice Billy? Do you have particular methods you use that help you get into character?
Good question.
Great question. As a voice actor, I don't. There are many voice actors who are, or many up and coming voice actors who are, and again, everybody is different, and you got to do what you do. What works for you works for you. But I've been doing this so long that outside of a lead-in line maybe that I might say that's not in the script to help get me into character in a regular commercial read, I don't need to do any warm-ups. I don't need to sit there and, do this kind of thing and say my vowels A, E, I, O, U and, warm up, or have a warm cup of tea, or to, do this kind of thing and flex. And you see a lot of voiceover coaches talking about vocal warm-ups and things like that. If that works for you, that's great. I'm not somebody that has never... I'm not somebody that's ever needed to do that. I just I get a script, I go in my booth and I just do it. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way. I say that's just how I've always been. Right. And there are other actors I know that do that too, that don't need to get into character per se. They read the script, they think about it, they kind of know what to do. And I think that comes more down to experience. I think the more that you are doing this, the more that you read copy, the more that you are acting, that's what voice acting is, the more that your instinctual abilities as an actor just clicks in. You just know instantaneously where you need to go as an actor in order to bring that part of the script to life, that read to life, that performance to life. That doesn't mean that direction is not helpful. Absolutely it is. But certainly, I think for me, I am very familiar with the IP. I'm familiar with the character. I'm familiar with the phone calls. So I didn't watch the movie, but I watched the scenes with the phone calls. Right. And I listened to the cadence and the style and the tone and sort of just the nuance of the performance of certain moments that is very Billy. Yeah. Not everything, because our dialogue was going to be different. Yeah. But how do I make our dialogue Billy? So I paid attention to that, and then I would go into my booth over here and I would run a bunch of crazy stuff. I mean, if you were here listening to me, I mean, it was insane, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then I would take that and mix it, master it, and piece it together in the story that we needed. So that's essentially, cool. That's a very simplistic way of saying it, but that's essentially what I was doing.
Dave's just always ready. He's just always ready. It's how he's made.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm just always no, but it's true, right?
I'm just joking. Yeah.
No. But I remember watching one of Bob Bergen, who's the voice of Porky Pig, who I had a chance to meet at the Voice Arts Awards a couple years ago. Obviously, very experienced legend in the business, and been doing it a lot longer than I have. I think he started doing it when I was born. So really nice guy. Shout out to Bob Bergen. And you can see him doing Porky, I think, in Space Jam too. Cool. So and shout out to Eric Bauza as well, who's a Asian Canadian from Toronto who lives in LA. He is the new voice of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. You can hear him in Space Jam as well. He's amazing. He's our age. He's fucking amazing. I got to get Eric on the show. He's fucking fantastic. Cool. So anyway, I remember Bob doing like a Q&A or something, and somebody asked him that same thing, and Bob was like, "Yeah, I just don't do anything. I just do it." You know what I mean? But I think that comes with experience.
No, you're right,
it comes
man.
with experience.
You're right. Yeah.
It comes with experience.
You're just warmed up. It's same like a visual artist who they just draw.
Yeah.
They just paint.
Right.
Because they're just always in the element. Right. Always performing, or they're just always in their element. So it's so easily accessible to them, I think, is the best way I can put
it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you've worked for so long.
It's like an athlete. Like that would be a fair analogy. Right. Like of there may be small things or things that they still need to do, but they're kind of ready to go. Because they're doing it all the time.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yep. Okay. And then Charlie Moore sends in 999, says, "Hey guys, want to say I loved It's Me, Billy. What you guys accomplished in such a short time was amazing. Also introduced me to the OG Black Christmas, which is now a favorite of mine." Cool. Very cool. I think that will happen too. I think It's Me, Billy. Well, hopefully it does. Actually, for those who haven't seen the OG, it turns them on to it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Blumhouse, for the increase in sales that you're noticing with your Blu-ray purchases and digital downloads.
Well, I don't know if they own the. Because they're the production company. I don't know if they own the rights because they're just the production company. Yeah. I might be still under Warner Brothers. Actually, I'm not sure. I gotta check. Anyway,
right. Big news happening with that company.
Oh, huge. Riddick sends in $5. Says, "What that god awful 2019 was that god awful 2019 remake the motivation to make this film and do justice to the original? Great job, guys." No, actually, there is a video on my channel from I think the 2nd or 3rd of July of 2019 where I made the announcement, and honest to goodness, or maybe it was before that. Anyway, we talked about doing it, and then like 2 weeks later, Blumhouse suddenly made the announcement that they were doing a remake, and I remember going, "What?" Kind of deflate. It was like, "Oh, do we do it now?" And we said, "No, let's just do it. Let's just do it." So no, it was not.
Just happened to work out the way that it did.
That's it. Yeah. We had it first. Okay, so Big Bopper sends in $2 and says, "What if Blumhouse tries to take down It's Me, Billy?" I don't think Blumhouse would do that. It's not monetized. We haven't made any money off of it. It's the same thing with, Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow. As long as you are not commercializing the project. And again, I don't know if it would be Blumhouse directly to do that. They are a production company.
It'd be more the distribution company, whoever has the distribution rights.
Right, which may be Universal, but it may be Warner Brothers. I don't think they would do it. At least I hope not. I think they would. Usually studios today are, again, it depends. Yeah. There's no, written rule, but some studios today are okay with fan films because it's free advertising. Mm-hmm. It keeps their most beloved properties in the pop culture consciousness when they're not doing anything with it, so that when they do something with it, it's already top of mind. And as long as we are not commercializing it, selling it to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, or something which we're not doing. It's free on YouTube. It's free on Vimeo. Generally, they don't care. Yeah. But hopefully we've done something that's good enough, which I think we have, that maybe they look at ours from maybe through a different lens, kind of like, oh, hey, maybe we should talk to these guys. Wink, nudge, I'm just saying.
I do have to say, though, on some level, I consider it a great compliment if a major studio is to come along and say, yeah, you guys did such a fantastic job. That needs to come down because it could be mistaken for something that we did.
Right.
Okay, well, that's saying a lot.
Well, then my rebuttal would be, hey, instead of doing that, why don't you bring us in for a meeting and let's make money together? Part of the conversation. That would be
and
part let's
of the
make money together. You know what I mean?
So clearly, you're taking it down and offering a job at the same time. Is
that what's happening? Or you want us to take this down because you want to extend the story now? That's what it is, right? You want to do that? That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the dream, right?
Yeah,
it's the dream of every. It's the dream of every independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's a dream, that
somebody, I think to be able to create your own work as well.
That's true. That is true. That is true.
And I understand part of it's earning that sort of trust.
That's a fair point.
Working through it, and it's a tough go, but I think for me it's definitely having the opportunity to create original content that is well funded. That really does move audiences and entertain, and you craft and tell some really fantastic stories.
No, you're right.
Very memorable.
The dream of the independent. I take back what I said. The dream of the independent filmmaker is to make the story, is to tell the stories they want with creative control. I think
that's what I'm trying to say.
Because
that's really it.
The larger a filmmaker you become, the more bureaucracy there is from the studios, and it's a business. When you are dealing with millions of dollars, it's showtime. It's the big time, and a lot of directors don't get final say or final cut, and that's disheartening for a lot of, especially when especially when it's a personal thing and you're really passionate about it. So but certainly,
it all depends,
I think what it is when I say that's the dream, it's the dream because of the distribution. It's the dream because of the money that a studio has to distribute your work to the masses.
Right.
is a dream come true for so many artists.
Well, and and that's where the game of online has really changed things.
That's
because
true too.
When you think about what happened
That's true
with
too.
the transition of music, right? So many music artists are now they can produce so much
Yeah, that's
from
true.
a home studio
Yeah.
and have mass distribution, and the label was no longer required, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people can do that.
Caused
It's-
problems early on with Napster and all that. Yeah.
But it's the same with filmmaking. Like think
Yeah.
about how much you can do just with your cell phone and a gimbal.
Oh,
and
God,
if you know how to
amazing.
use editing software and you can expose it right, maybe you even own like a couple of soft lights or other things, and you have a well-crafted story. You
Yep.
create a tight, awesome little short film. There's even features that have been shot on cells, and you can there's a lot that you could do. Like even
100%.
Lower end professional grade cameras, if you've got the money to invest.
Canon
Like, it's-
C100, 200, 300.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Even the
great
Sony
stuff.
like FX
Sony,
series and
Panasonic.
yeah, like there's a lot of solid choices if you're in that price range. And anyway, just all that to say, it's having the creative control is very important.
Yeah.
Having it well funded, because there is a difference between. I don't know. Like there's artistry. I don't want to go on a separate philosophical tip here,
Yeah.
but I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to say anymore. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Movie Chat and More says, "You're such a humble guy, Bruce. You're so cool."
Thank you. Cool. Thank you.
The J-Man's Movie Cave sends in $10. Thank you, J-Man. Says, "Fantastic film, Dave and Bruce. Emma was my favorite character. Her performance was so nuanced and subtle. The beautiful slow zoom of her wrapped in a plastic was a gut punch. Donation for the sequel." Thank you,
Love it,
Jason.
love it.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
that. Really appreciate
Appreciate it.
that. And Mass Machine Horror, what does it have? Mass Machine Horror Show. Mass Machine Horror, sorry, Mace Machine Horror Show is the name. Says, "Hey Dave, you and your crew did an amazing job on your film. I loved it. Is there any possibility of purchasing it on Blu-ray in the future?" There is a possibility. That's something Bruce and I will talk about soon. We first have to get the Blu-rays made and distributed to, of course, those that picked them up in the Indiegogo campaign. But it is possible, yes.
Yeah.
And when we know, when and if we decide to do that, we will let everybody know.
Yeah, and I think we'll be able to let people know within the very near future, I'd
Yes,
say.
I think so.
Because our next step in our journey, now that the film has been released and we've had an opportunity to talk about it, of course, we'll continue with promotion of it and continue to get the word out there. We ask for people's help on that. But then our next step is really to focus on fulfilling the perks.
Yeah.
Because you were so generous with your time and your money to donate. You believed in us. And
That's right.
so we're going to focus on getting that stuff prepared now. There's a few of the perks that we've already fulfilled. Like I know Dave's had some of the guests on a couple of his shows. So
Yep.
there were, there was.
Well, I've had one. I've had
one?
one?
Okay.
I've had one. So yeah, no, I'm going to start doing that now over the summer.
There were the Christmas ornaments that Len Griffith had put together, and folks that had purchased those,
Yep.
they've received those.
Yep.
We sent those out on purpose during the Christmas
Season.
season,
Yep.
so that you can
Hopefully
have
everybody
that
got
put
them.
on your Christmas tree. And so we've started, and so now we're really going to step into that piece full on and get those fulfilled over the next little while.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to give posts and announcements.
for
you
sure.
can trust us. We continue to do that. So
And we'll keep you updated
get that
if
all out.
and if and when we do move into development on a follow-up, we will let you know.
100%.
And but we're going to leave it there. I think that's a good spot. We got all the super chats as far as I can see. I want to thank
Fantastic.
all the super chats that came in today. You guys are amazing. Hopefully, Bruce and I have been able to shed some light onto our creative process as directors, as writers, as producers, as filmmakers, onto the creative choices of why we made the choices we did.
Yep.
And hopefully, maybe on a rewatch with that in mind, it might give you a bit of a different perspective, as sometimes that does. The cool thing about doing this is that ordinarily when you're watching like a studio movie that's directed by like Scorsese or Abrams or Nolan or whatever, you don't get to sit down with them for like 3 hours and you know pick their brain. So like you might hear them say some things in an interview, like in blurbs and,
but you
and things
never
like
really
that.
get the,
but you never really get the
nitty gritty detail and the grit of it all. Like, we're, I think, we could definitely do another one of these for sure. Because there's also so much that we haven't talked about as well.
Yes.
Like there's so much to the process and every aspect of it.
100%.
Maybe we'll get Greg on if he's interested.
Yeah, that would be great.
A little bit more of a deep dive into the cinematography specifically.
That's a great idea.
Talking with him about
Greg, if you're watching,
that.
if you're down,
yeah,
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I think fans would love that, considering the mood and the atmosphere and just the plethora of positive comments about that work. And that's really a testament to Greg and
100%.
and the rest of the crew and Nikita, because there's also a lot of credit that's due to the gaffer and the lighting team.
That's it.
But, and that relationship, to talk about that relationship with the DP, because they're the crew that's really executing that for them, and and just everybody's working together. It's out of any of the arts, because I consider it like with dance, drama, visual art, literary arts, movie making, I definitely consider one of the arts.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think it is by far the most collaborative out of all of them. And I would group like live performance in with that too. So anything live performance or recorded performance, if it's fair to put it that way, I think they're the most collaborative of the arts. It's because of so many people involved and
so many people,
the levels too, and the process.
You're working on a budget. You're on a time constraint. It really is. And that's why sometimes there's personality clashes and people don't get along. And it was a dream. And again, I'm not naive. I know that, there are times you work with people and stuff and you don't get along and you have to get along because that's who you're working with. But it was a wonderful experience working with our casting crew. Everybody got along. Everybody really liked each other as far as I know. Everybody was great, professional, on time, and committed to bringing our vision to life.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, everybody took
enough.
stakes in it. Everybody felt like it was their own. And, like we've said before, we were very conscious of our approach to our leadership style going into it. And we talked a lot about that. Yeah. Because one of the points that I've often talked to Dave about, and even when I've taught leadership courses to the film industry here in Canada, one of the things I'll discuss is that understanding when you're in a key position, even as a producer or director, I found historically some folks would really see, they understood that they are leaders, and then other folks, not necessarily, or they didn't sort of, I guess, conceptualize it that way or think of themselves like that. Mm-hmm. Sort of like, I'm the producer. I got to, put this thing together. There's all these headaches I got to deal with, like whatever. But there's not necessarily maybe that framing of thinking that, well, technically speaking, you're an employer. And when you start to frame it a little bit more in that, I'm going to say corporate context or true business context in that way, where there's that organizational structure, there's some of that sensibility that I think there's merit to applying it in this. I'm not saying make movie making corporate. That's not what I'm saying.
No, but what you're saying is
it's like transferable skill sets.
Right. And
it's transferable skill sets.
When you are,
there's merit to applying
100%. And when you're a director on set, you are a leader, you are a manager. And so that's bang on the skill sets that you need to be. And look, not everybody, there are some directors that may be great visionaries, but they're terrible communicators and they're not good with people.
And that's tough.
And they're difficult to work with.
Because that's a huge part of the job.
Because that's a huge, no, but it's true, right? And that's my point. And then there are some that are great communicators, that are great to work with, but are not visionaries and are just surface level, paint by the numbers kind of thing. Yeah. So, but a big part of this job is communication. When you communicate, like there were many times where I would go up to Stuart or Luke and just ask how they're, now look, I get it. When you're on a Hollywood set with 250 people, there are many times as our actors, you said, you don't have that opportunity. No. The director may not even, talk to the crew outside of being on, or the actors outside. It's I'm being very general. Okay. Yeah. But one of the things I loved about our little set was being able to walk up to the crew and ask how they're doing. Yeah. And,
it was personable. It was
and not only how they're doing, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't mean like, so what are you doing? You're not doing. No, I mean like I see them working. I'm like, tell me what you're doing. Educate me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
fill me in. Well, I'm actually doing this, whatever. And it was just a really neat experience. And again, I understand that on a large, like on a, you know, a Star Wars movie, that's not likely necessarily possible all the time. But certainly to be an effective filmmaker, director, you have to have vision, consistent vision, strong vision that doesn't waver. And when you're co-directing a project, whether it's your best friend or somebody you don't know at all, which isn't usually the case, usually it's somebody you know well, you have to be in a line. That doesn't mean that you don't differ on certain things. You got to work some things out, but you have to be not aligned, but
on the same page.
On the same page, but there's a word I'm looking for. You have to be
like in sync, in lockstep with
sync.
each other.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a word, but yes, in sync, aligned, and committed to your vision together.
Yeah.
And
Clear. There has to be clarity.
Clarity, and be able to effectively communicate that to everybody on set.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So and that's not easy to do, but it's when you can do it. Magic can happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what makes it so cool.
Yeah.
And so much fun. Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you again for everybody who joined us. We'll definitely do another one of these, and it's going to be a lot of fun when we do, because I think getting Greg on here would be really cool.
Yeah, and I think he would love
awesome.
that too, and have an opportunity to talk about his work and what he's done, and talk about the choices he made and why, and talk to him also about some of his creative influences, like what DPs have influenced him, because he talked to us about that when filming. And we can talk about visual references we gave him, and
Greg is somebody that's been doing this for 25 something years. He's a pro in the business.
The real deal.
He's the real deal. So if you are a up and coming cinematographer or really interested in that kind of thing, that would be a show that you would want to tune into, because Greg would be able to answer your questions like that.
Yeah.
He's amazing and such a sweetheart of a guy, and talented too. So that's going to do it. Bruce, thanks for coming in, man.
This was awesome. No, that's fantastic. Love the questions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to everybody that's been showing love online, and just all of the positive reviews and feedback. It's awesome. It really is awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you. And it's I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how people were going to take it.
I didn't know either. Like
so
I was confident in our movie. Like I was confident in what we had. But as I say on this channel all the time, you release something to the world, you let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
I knew that.
You don't know how people are going to react.
No,
right?
you don't. I knew that obviously there would be some people that, and who knows, maybe there's more of them that are out there. But I knew that some of the creative decisions we made would be an area of, I wonder why they did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of an overall response, a generalization, I had no idea. I was nervous, but it was great to see when I hit post. And then of course, it's a 42-minute movie. So I knew it's not like the trailer where it's like a minute and you can see the response like 10 seconds later.
Right,
you know what I mean?
You got to wait 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I waited the hour, and then the responses began to come in, and it's been largely positive. I think if this was a movie that wound up on Rotten Tomatoes, I think the general consensus would be mostly positive reviews.
Right.
I think that's what you would kind of say. Because there's some that are like, I didn't like it. I didn't like that. It was doing. Sure. Because you're always going to get that, right? But from what I can see, even the
general consensus.
The general consensus, I think, is this was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
So thank
for
you.
That.
Thank you.
We're really happy that you all like it.
Yeah, we do not take that. We take it to heart. And it means a lot to us, because we worked hard for us, obviously, but for you guys too. We wanted to deliver something to you guys that you can be proud of. Hopefully we did that. So thank you to my moderators, of course, Frank Reicher, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. Darren, of course, is probably fast asleep right now. He's over in the UK. You guys are amazing. No McRae lives this week, by the way. I'm taking a bit of a break. I know people, or maybe some people are like, yay, I can't stand him. But I am taking a bit of a break this week because there's just a lot going on.
To wrap. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the release of the film, there's all kinds of stuff that happens in the background that you don't even know
Yeah.
that we deal with and work on. But it's all part of what keeps things moving forward.
That's it. That's it. So I will be back. You'll probably see me again. Well, you'll see me again. Well, actually, I'm on Sean's channel tomorrow. He's having his 100th episode of Fandom Empire Live, I think. So I'll be on there a little bit with Lee McCoy. Make sure you tune into that.
Oh, cool.
And then I will be back with Tony for Two Dudes and Some Bullshit the following Monday, next Monday. So a week today. So look out for that. And then hopefully we can get into more of a regular schedule. But I need just a little bit of a break.
Yeah, that's fair. You've been working hard, dude. You've been working hard.
Yeah. Well, you too. Jesus. All right, guys. Have a great night. And we will talk to you guys soon.
Take care, everybody.
Cheers.